All right. Now we're going to move to the bottom of page 5, 33rd Ward, document number 20434 T1. Again, 33rd Ward Ordinance was referred on June 17th of 2020. Common address is 3334 through 3336 West Lawrence Avenue. The change request, a B12 neighborhood shopping district to a B23 neighborhood mixed use district. Tyler Manick, would you like to?
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. For the record, my name is Tyler Manick of the Shane Bakes Law Firm. I'm here on behalf of the applicant, Bass Realty 2 LLC, which owns a property commonly known as 3334 to 3336 West Lawrence, which is a subject of this zoning map amendment application. The applicant is requesting a zoning map amendment from a B12 zoning district to a B23 zoning district to renovate the existing mixed-use building and add an additional dwelling unit on the garden level. The existing building currently contains 12 dwelling units, 6 office spaces, and 3 commercial units. The total commercial space is 9,277 square feet. After renovation, the building will contain 13 dwelling units, 6 commercial units. The applicant will not change the existing 12 dwelling units or the 6 office spaces and 3 commercial units. The building will remain as existing. The building is also located on a pedestrian street and within 1,200 feet from the CTA Brown Line Kedzie station, so it's a transit served location. The applicant has worked with Alderman Rodriguez about this zoning amendment application and has successfully engaged her ward community process. Based upon those meetings and discussions, the Alderman has given us a letter of support, which I believe the committee has on file. As a result, I respectfully request this committee's favorable vote in recommending passage of the applicant's application to amend the zoning of 3334 to 3336 West Lawrence, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
All right. Questions for the applicant? We do have a letter from Rodriguez Sanchez in support of the project. Questions? Then hearing no hands up, can I get a motion to adopt this item by the same roll call vote used to establish quorum?
So move.
Alderman Burnett moves, so moves. Hearing no objection, so ordered. Thank you. All right, now Alderman Burnett, we're going to go back to you. We lost you there for a second. Bottom of page 3, Pericles was making a presentation on 816 North May Street. And that document number 20385, the ordinance was referred on April 22nd, 2020. You said that we didn't have a letter of support from you, but you were going to testify, so we missed you there while we were on there. So do you want to talk about 816 North May?
Yeah, so they did meet with the local community organization, the Neighbors of River West. I conferred with them. They were all in support of it. So I support this project, and I asked the committee to support it also. Thank you.
For Alderman Burnett. Seeing no hands up, can I get a motion to adopt this item by the same roll call used to establish quorum?
Alderman Cardona, motion.
Alderman Dowell moves do pass on the item. Hearing no objections? No. Hearing none, this item is passed as ordered. Thank you.
Thank you.
Now, let me go back. Where are we at now? We're now with Tyler, so now we're
back to Tyler.
Okay.
And Gardner.
All right. Now we're on the top of page 6. Document number 20424, 45th Ward, ordinance referred on June 17th of 2020. Common address 4202 through 4204 West Irving Park Road. Change request is a B31 community shopping district to a B32 community shopping district. Tyler Manick.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. For the record, my name is Tyler Manick of the Shane Bakes Law Firm. I'm here on behalf of the applicant DJ LLC, which owns a property commonly known as 4202 to 4204 West Irving Park Avenue, and which is a subject of this zoning map amendment application. The applicant is requesting a zoning amendment from a B31 zoning district to a B32 zoning district to develop the parcel into a 3-story restaurant. After construction, the building will be 5,480 square feet entirely consisting of restaurant space. The property is also a transit-served location in close proximity to the Irving Park Metro Station. The applicant has met with Alderman Gardner about the zoning map amendment application, has met with the local community group to share the plans. Based on those meetings and discussions, the Alderman has given us and the committee his letter of support. As a result, I respectfully request this committee's favorable vote in recommending passage of the applicant's application to amend the zoning of 4202 to 4204 West Irving Park Avenue, and I would be happy to answer any questions.
All right. Tyler, do we have a letter of support from Alderman Gardner?
Yes.
Okay. Will you make sure that we have it on our file? I don't have it recorded as received. So would you email that to the committee, please?
Yeah, I'll resend that to Raymond and Nicole.
Okay, thank you. All right. Can I get a motion to adopt this item by the same roll call used to establish quorum?
So moved. Alderman Riley.
Alderman Riley moves to pass on this item. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any object? Hearing no objection, this item is passed and ordered.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
All righty. Next, item middle of page 6. Document number 20426, 35th Ward. Ordinance was referred on June 17th, 2020. Common address 3139 through 3141 North Central Park Avenue. And the change request RS3 residential single unit detached house district to an RM 4.5 residential multi-unit district. Paul Kolpak.
Alderman Tunney?
Yep, you're on. We're
Hi, Alderman. Can you hear me? This is Paul Kolpak.
loud and clear, Paul. Proceed.
Alderman, we can't hear you.
Well, that might be your problem because I'm unmuted.
I don't know why it was working and now it's not working.
I can hear you, Chairman.
I can hear you fine.
Yeah.
Paul's just got the volume down on his.
Paul, check the volume on your computer, maybe.
Oh, can you?
Hi, Alderman, can you hear me? Unfortunately, when you switched us to a panelist, our microphone got shut off and now we can't hear you guys, but
All right, well, that's not good.
it
So
was working and now it's.
we will, I can hear you and you cannot hear me?
Alderman, can you hear me now?
I can hear you loud and clear. Can you hear
Okay,
me?
now we can hear you.
All right, well, thank God.
Thank you for your patience.
All right, now let's go. We are, the first item that I read into the record was in the 35th Ward, 3139 through 3141 North Central Park Avenue. That was document number 20426.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. My name is Paul Kolpak. I represent the applicant, Daniel Mihalescu. We're requesting a zoning change from the current RS3 residential single unit detached housing district to that of an RM 4.5 residential multi-unit district. Purpose of the zoning change is to allow the division of lots 12 and 13 to construct a new masonry 3-story, 3-dwelling unit building with finished basement on lot 13 and to legalize the existing 3.5-story building on lot 12. That will remain as built. We met with the community group actually on the site, and we have a letter of support from the alderman, and I'm prepared to answer any questions if there are.
Paul, would you make sure that you email that letter of support from Alderman Ramirez Rosa?
I don't know why we're not hearing you well.
I think my committee members can hear me. Can you not, committee members?
Yeah, we can hear you.
We can hear you just fine.
Okay.
All
I
right,
hear you.
They probably need to log off and log back on.
Paul, can you hear me or not? I guess
Yeah, I
not.
can hear you now, Alderman.
All right, well, stay where you're at. Don't move.
Okay,
All right. So would you make sure that you send us that letter of support from Carlos Rosa, the Alderman?
yes, I will. In fact, we'll do it, we'll send it out to Raymond and Nicole in a few moments.
Okay, all right. Questions from committee members? Hearing no questions, can I get a motion to adopt this item by the same roll call vote used to establish quorum?
Alderman Cardona move, so moved.
Alderman Cardona moves. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Any,
Aye.
any objections? Hearing no objection, the item is ordered, and we want to make sure that that's on file, Paul. So we'll continue with you. Hopefully you're not moving. All right, so we are now on the bottom of page 6. Number 20433 in the 36th Ward. Ordinance was referred on June 17th of 2020. The common address is 6618 through 6620 West Belmont Avenue. Change request. RT4 residential 2-flat townhouse and multi-unit district to a C11 neighborhood commercial district. Paul? We're losing you, Paul. Can't hear you.
Unmute.
Mr. Kolpak?
Can you hear me now?
Yes,
All right.
I told you not to move.
I didn't.
Okay, all right, proceed.
My name is Paul Kolpak. I represent the applicant Belmont Capital LLC, doing business as ONS Dental Inc. The change request from the RT4 residential 2-flat to townhomes and multi-unit district to C1-1 neighborhood commercial district. The purpose to allow the use of the current property for warehouse storage and preparation of orders provided to ONS Dental from third-party shippers. We have spent a number of meetings with Alderman Villegas. We talked to some of the members of the community. We do believe we have his support. There should be a letter in your file from Alderman Villegas. And I'm prepared to answer any questions.
Thank you, Paul. We have a letter of support from Alderman Villegas. Alderman, would you like to say a few words on the item?
No, Mr. Chairman, I would just like to have consideration of the committee.
Okay, thank you, Alderman. Questions for the applicant or the Alderman? Hearing none, can I get a motion to adopt this item by the same roll call used to establish quorum?
Alderman Cardona,
Alderman Cardona so moves. Hearing no objection. No objection. This item, item is passed as ordered. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman.
Paul, stay with me. I think I've got one more with you.
Correct.
Top of page 7. Document 20427 T1. In the 45th Ward, the ordinance was referred on June 17th of 2020. The common address is 4837 through 4841 North Lips Avenue. The change request, 332 Community Shopping District to a C13 Neighborhood Commercial District. Paul Kolpak.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. My name is Paul Kolpak. I represent the applicant 4841 Lips LLC. Our change request is going from the current B3-2 Community Shopping District to that of the C1-3 Neighborhood Commercial District. The purpose is to develop a mixed-use development with 9 apartments and 1 restaurant brew pub. This property is currently owned by the city of Chicago. And I know, Alderman, you'd like to have this brief, but I think that a timeline, which I had sent to your office, is appropriate to be read into the record, if you don't mind.
Proceed.
Okay, this project started in November of 21. of 2016, when we approached the then Alderman Arena and requested the ability to change the zoning district. Back in April of 2017, then Ed O'Bannon, who was part of Alderman Arena's economic development team, put together a request for proposals, which were sent out. We then proposed our concept. The detailed version of that concept was 4 stories, 9 apartments, and we received no input on that at all. We continued to work with Lake Effect Brewery to be the first floor tenant. At that point, the city in September of 17, city planning department asked Ambrosia to update the negotiated sales documents for the city review. In January of 18, the city department of planning requested even more information from Ambrosia, and we had conference calls with the city and the planning department. At that time, they suggested a community meeting with the neighbors of Jefferson Park. In March of that year, my client met with the Northwest Side Historical Society at the Alderman's office. And at that point, the historical group stated that they were happy that a company would invest in this project, but it had a reservation of the look of this project. Then later in March of that year of 2018, there was a community meeting at the Copernicus Center about this project. My client and Lake Effect presented the project to at least 200 people in attendance, including the future Alderman, Alderman Gardner. At that point, the presentation was well received. The city of Chicago asked my client to pay for an appraisal, to update the appraisal for the property, which we did. In August of 18, the city granted Ambrosia Homes ongoing access to the building. We provided certificates of insurance and bound by an access agreement. In the fall of 18, my client paid for and completed an environmental phase 1 study, provided it to the city. Our consultants noted that there was a buried underground storage tank on the property, asbestos present, and a significant amount of lead paint had been disturbed due to how the building had been winterized. In December of 18, the Alderman's office mentioned to my client that the local historical group has concerns about the look of the building. We then met with that historical group and made changes to the building, and they backed our new plan. In February of 19, we met with the building department and found out about additional requirements to complete the proposal, since the building had been industrial. In approximately April, we paid for a phase 2 in order to contaminated materials survey, which we did and gave that to the city. We then continued to solicit bids for the asbestos removal, lead paint removal, and shared these bids with the representatives of the city's planning department. In March of 19, the city committed to remove the underground storage tank prior to my client purchasing the property. The final plan that you see in front of us is now a 3-story building, 9 units of residential, with Lake Effect Brewery as the first floor tenant. With the new plan, we met with the Preservation Chicago and North Side Historical Societies in person. Plan is well received, but there are other changes that they wish us to make, which we do in March of 19. In spring of 19, both the Preservation Chicago and Northwest Side Historical Societies sent letters of support for this project. In June of 19, the city of Chicago has indicated that they will remove the underground storage tank. And we now, in June of 19, meet with Alderman Gardner. We bring the Alderman up to date of the extent of damage inside due to the status of the lead paint. We now, in August of 19, Alderman Gardner provides us a temporary letter of support for the project addressed to the building department so that we can continue to work with the building department towards a negotiated sale. In March of 2020, Jim Wheaton is assigned to the project from the Department of Housing. In April of this year, the project was reviewed and the sale approved to my client by the internal groups at the Department of Buildings and Department of Housing. The Department of Housing permits the Department of Zoning to accept it in May of this year, an application on behalf of my client for the purchase of the project. In June of this year, we complete the drawings and submit them to the city for zoning change. In June of this year, and my client works with Jim Wheaton to prepare for the Community Development Commission meeting. We send letters for WBE and MBE contractors who may be interested in working on the future projects. In July of this year, the CDC unanimously approves the sale of the property to my client and to formally publish the notice. This goes to emphasize how long my client has been working with the city, everything he's done to obtain community city support. I stand to answer any questions if there are any from the committee.
All right. Do we have questions from the committee? All right, we've gotten verbal email or a verbal recognition from Fulton Gardner that he supports the project. I believe we had a public comment person on this issue. I'm going to ask Patrick Murphy here to comment on the RFP process. It's probably separate and distinct from the zoning process. Patrick, I know Paul Kolpak has given a detailed outline, but I thought there was some concern from some of the neighbors about lack of notice.
So this is Patrick Murphy. From the Department of Planning, I don't have the information on the RFP or the notice process related to that document. That was not part of the zoning process. I'll get staff from the Department of Planning and follow that up with the chairman on that, but I do not have that information.
The RFP is separate from the zoning process.
Which you mentioned specifically for the enlightenment of our committee members, the RFP process, say it again, is separate and distinct from the zoning process. So we have it on the record, sir.
Yes, sir. The RFP process for the land sale is separate from the zoning map amendment process.
And I think this was a fire station / ward yard, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And many of us that have had to dispose of city property, as Alderman, or as the attorney Paul Kolpak said, it's a very, my understanding is a pretty lengthy process to go through the actual sale of something that requires some kind of RFP by the Department of Housing or by the Department of Planning and Development. Correct?
Yes, sir. That is absolutely correct. I don't know the exact length for this transaction, but I will follow up with the committee on that.
Okay. So the question for the attorney Paul Kolpak. Paul? Paul Kolpak.
You're muted again.
Okay. Alderman, can you hear me now?
Yes. So,
Alderman, I actually listened to the comments earlier this morning about not notice, and I did send to your office, to Raymond and Nicole, emails that I have received from the records from the then Alderman Arena's office. The gentleman who testified indicated that he did not have an opportunity to present or know about it. Yet I have an email dated March 14th to the Alderman's office from the attorney for the protester, indicating, he says, please see the development package. Call me if you have any questions. Then on May 1st, the same law firm sends a letter to Mr. Bannon indicating it's about a May 15th deadline to submit proposals to the firehouse.
Paul,
Yes,
just, would you make sure that we have those records for the
I did.
committee?
I sent them.
Okay.
I sent them today this morning when I heard the
Okay, Fine.
protesters. They should
Thank
be
you.
up in the office.
thank you. All right, questions from committee members? Hearing none, we do have the letter of support via Gardner. No questions by committee members. Do I hear a motion do pass by the same roll call that was used to determine quorum?
Move to pass.
Alderman Riley moves to pass. Any objections? Hearing none, item is passed. Thank you, Paul. All right. Now we're in the middle of page 7. Document number 20423 T1 35th Ward. Ordinance was referred on June 17th of 2020. Common address 3130 through 3132 North Spalding Avenue. The change request an RS3 residential single unit detached house district to an RT 3.5 residential 2-flat townhouse and multi-unit district. We have Fred on behalf of that, but before we ask Fred to speak, we do have a substitute ordinance on Alderman Riley's storefront protection. It's been emailed to all the committee members, so we're going to bring that back up too. All right, Fred, you want to talk about the 35th Ward, please, on Spalding?
Sure. Thank you, Alderman. Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. For the record, my name is Fred Augustin. I'm the attorney on this matter. I'm here today on behalf of the applicant, PDL Real Estate LLC. Applicant owns the property at 3130 to 32 North Spalding. Property is a double lot, measuring 50 feet wide by 123 feet deep. It's currently improved with a 2-flat and a 2-car garage on one lot and another 2-car garage on the second lot. Both lots form one zoning lot. We are here seeking rezoning from the current RS3 district to an RT 3.5 district. And the reason for this change is to allow the subdivision of the one zoning lot into 2 separate zoning lots, where the 2-flat and the 2-car garage will remain on the one lot, while the second lot will be redeveloped with a new single-family home with a 2-car garage. We have worked with Alderman Ramirez Rosa in his office on this matter. We did present the project before a local community via conference call. All were in support of the zoning change. You should have a letter of no objection from the Alderman's office. I'm here to answer any questions the committee may have.
Fred, we do have a letter of support from Alderman Ramirez Rosa. Questions by committee members? Can I get a motion to move to pass by the same roll call that was used to establish or determine quorum?
So moved, Alderwoman Hadden.
Alderwoman Hadden moves to pass. Any objections? Hearing none, the item is passed. All right.
Thank you.
Thank you, Fred. Bottom of page 7. And after this item, we're going to go back to Alderman Riley, just FYI by committee members. So
The reason that we're all gathered, I want to say a few words to the residents of this city.
would you please unmute in the background? Document number 20421-T1, 43rd Ward. Ordinance was referred on June 17th of 2020. The common address 1754 North Clark Street. The change request, a B35 community shopping district to a B35 community shopping district. And it really is an extension of an existing type 1. I'm going to ask Kate Duncan to present to the committee.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and good afternoon, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. My name is Kate Duncan, and I'm an attorney that is appearing on behalf of the applicant in this matter, Giordano Dance Chicago, in connection with application number 20420. The subject property bears the address 1754 North Clark Street. In November of 2017, this property was rezoned to a B3-5 community shopping district in order to allow for the use of the property as a new headquarters for the applicant, Giordano Dance Chicago. The ordinance was a type 1 ordinance, and in accordance with the zoning code, type 1 ordinances are good for a period of 2 years. Since the time the original application was approved, Giordano Dance has moved its executive offices into the existing building, which is the former Herman Baptist Church, but is still in the process of fundraising for the proposed new building and needs some additional time to construct the proposed building in accordance with the original type 1 ordinance. Accordingly, we are here today to request an extension of the 2017 type 1 ordinance with the B3-5 zoning classification. Applicant is not proposing any changes to the 2017 type 1 ordinance and still seeks to construct the building in accordance with the originally submitted plans. The proposed building will have 3 studio and rehearsal spaces and will also have some retail on the ground floor, and the maximum height of the building is 70 feet. This property is located in Alderman Michelle Smith's ward, and in 2017, applicant had met extensively with the alderman and community residents before receiving the support of Alderman Smith. Since that time, the applicant has stayed in close connection with the alderman about the status of the proposed project, and it's our understanding that the alderman is still in full support of the project. I'm here to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, Kate. I think I was supportive of this project a couple of years ago. This is the church, originally a church on North Clark that is being expanded and such. It was actually enthusiastically approved back then. What is, was there a fundraising problem with this that makes it extend it?
I think they're still working on the fundraising. 2 years went fast, I think, for this applicant. And so they're still working on it, but they still intend to construct the building.
Okay, so I know we have Alderman Smith's representative, Joanna Zayden. Is there anything more you want to bring to the committee's attention? Joanna.
Hi, Chairman. Yes, this is Joanna Zayden. I'm the Alderman's head of zoning for the 43rd Ward. And unfortunately, the Alderman had to leave the meeting, but she wanted me to say that we remain in full support of this application.
Questions for the applicant or the representative from Joanna from 43?
Alderman Riley moves to pass.
Okay, without any more questions by committee members, Alderman Riley moves to pass by the same roll call that was used to determine quorum. Any objections? Nope. Hearing none, the item is passed. Thank you.
Very much.
Okay. Now we're on the top of page 8.
We're going back to Riley.
Oh, I'm sorry. Alderman Riley, you were very aggressive about that because you really wanted to be heard your substitute on the substitute or whatever. So let me get into the records. Let me just see. Moving on or back to TAD 600, introduced by Alderman Riley on June 17th of 2020, the amendment of the municipal code 17-4 by adding new section 17-4-1100 to establish requirements for roll-up, overhead, or sliding security gates or doors. Alderman Raboyes moves to accept the substitute by the same roll call that was used to determine quorum. Any objections? Hearing no objections, the substitute is accepted. Alderman Riley.
Thank you, Chairman. As requested by our colleagues on the zoning committee, we've reworked the substitute ordinance to be more narrowly defined. And I will, for the record, read it quickly. 17-4-1100, roll up, overhead, or sliding security gates or doors. When the area bounded by the parcels adjacent to the south side of Wacker Drive to the north, parcels adjacent to the west side of Franklin Street to the west, parcels adjacent to the north side of Adams Street Avenue to the east, any roll-up, overhead, or sliding door, security door, or gate installed after July 30th, 2020 for ground floor retail or commercial uses located in any building must be located inside of any storefront window, be clear and non-reflective, allowing views of indoor commercial space or product display areas. And 3, comply with any transparency requirements, including section 17-4-504C, or the terms of any plan development ordinance as applicable. This ordinance shall be effective upon passage and publication. So essentially, this creates a much smaller box, basically bounded by Wacker Drive on the north, Adams Street on the south, Franklin on the west, and Michigan Avenue to the east. So it literally is a square and entirely contained within the boundaries of the 42nd Ward. By more narrowly tailoring this, this allows my colleagues in the 3rd, 4th, 27th, 43rd, and 2nd Wards to socialize this kind of idea with shop owners that they represent. But in the Chicago Loop Alliance, which represents the boundaries of this ordinance, is very much in favor of. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Alderman. Alderman Rod Sawyer.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. I just had a quick question. I was trying to just understand it. I'm fine with it, but you're saying that the protective covering, whether the shades or the shutters, have to be on the inside of the window?
Correct.
Alderman Riley?
Yes.
So they would, in effect, they would not protect. I'm a rabble rouser. I throw a brick. I break the window, but I'm just curious to know why would you not want that protected?
Again, this was brought to me by the business association that represents the Loop. They represent hundreds of store owners and landlords. This was what they recommended that I incorporate into the ordinance. So I'm deferring to the business owners that would be governed within that boundary. It wasn't
Okay, I'm fine. I mean, if that's what they want, that's fine. I was just curious. It seems like you would want to have a protective covering, you know, outside the window.
You might think so, but I believe that the way the technology works is such it's more effective on the interior. So they may break the pane of glass, but they won't be able to gain entry to the business itself. But again, I took that language as a recommendation from the business group, not my own.
No problem. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Alderman, and I know that I got a chance to see some of the examples. I think that might behoove our colleagues to see the aesthetic and the protective natures of what you're proposing in your ward. Alderman Ray Lopez.
Thank you, Chairman. And I want to thank Alderman Riley for sharing his substitute and for during our break talking with me about this. I personally believe this should be a citywide matter, especially for neighborhoods like the ones that I represent on the southwest side. Neighborhoods that that steel gate sends a very negative message to people looking to invest in communities, or even to the residents who think that, you know, they are living quite literally in a ghetto with those steel gates coming down. They deserve to have the same kind of opportunities and the same kind of look as we see downtown. And while I'm not going to oppose this, I do look forward to working with Alderman Riley to ensure that we could bring this to the rest of our neighborhoods, because the best way to show life is to show it. And you can see it through a transparent and safe plexiglass protective rolling gate in neighborhoods too. So look forward to that, and hopefully this committee will come back in a few months and address that very issue next. Thank you, Chairman.
Chairman, if I could.
Alderman Riley.
Yeah, Chairman, I thank you, Alderman Lopez, for the compliment and for agreeing to support the ordinance. Again, I just want to make it very clear for the record that this will not apply retroactively. So for those storefronts that already have these gates in place, I plan to make it my endeavor to engage with those business owners and see if we can find some affordable solutions for them that they can voluntarily upgrade their storefronts with. But at least with this ordinance and future ordinances that may govern your ward, Alderman Lopez, or others, at least moving forward, if folks choose to install those security measures, they'll be held to that aesthetic standard. So I've got to do some work with the folks that are already grandfathered in. These exist in my ward too. And that'll be more of a voluntary, hey, let's work together type of arrangement. But at least moving forward, these will have to meet a certain standard.
Thank you,
Chairman.
Alderman Riley. No more questions by committee members. Do I hear a motion to pass by the same roll call that was used to determine quorum?
So moved, Chairman.
To pass.
It was Alderman Wagasback, I believe.
Hold on one moment.
Moves to pass. Any objections?
No objections.
Hearing none, the item is passed as amended. Thank you.
Thank you, Alderman.
All right,
Thank you, Alderman. Thank you, Chairman.
now we're in the top of page 8. And we are on item number 20422, 46th Ward. Ordinance was referred on June 17th of 2020. Common address 827 through 837 West Wilson Avenue. Change request B35 Community Shopping District to B25 Neighborhood Mixed Use District. Steve Friedland.
Yes, can you hear me, Alderman?
We can. Thank you.
Great, thank you so much. This is a request for the property at 827 to 837 West Wilson. By the way, I should state for the record, my name is Steve Friedland. I'm an attorney with the law firm of Applegate and Thorne Thompson, here representing Brinshore Development. The purpose of this rezoning is to allow Brinshore to develop a new 6-story, 73-unit affordable senior residential development on what is currently a vacant lot. The need for the change is to allow for ground floor residential use. This is going to be a 100% residential building with no commercial space, hence the need to go to the B2. As you can see from the drawing here of our site plan, this property sits directly west of the existing Lakeview Towers property, which is an approximately 20-some story building. It is owned by a residents association, and I should note that some of the basis of getting this done and financing this affordable project is coming from the generous financial support of that residents association. They are providing some of the proceeds from a recent loan financing to allow this affordable housing development to be developed. There will be 44 parking spaces. You can probably just jump to maybe the last drawing. You see, what's helpful, I think, is if our last slide, yeah, this is a rendering of what the project's going to look like along Wilson Avenue. I would also note to the committee that because of the proximity to this property to the lakefront, it's in the Lakefront Protection Ordinance District. So we have also filed an application with the Plan Commission for lakefront approval, and we will get that heard by them. But this request before you is for the B3-5 to B2-5 zoning. We have met with Alderman Kappelman. I believe he was on here at the meeting, though I believe you also have a letter of support in the file from him. And I would certainly be happy to take any questions the committee might have.
Thank you, Steve. We do have a letter of support from Alderman Kappelman, but I think I see him on the call. Alderman Kappelman, thank you for your patience.
Sure. I've worked with Stephen Samoa. He's the president of Lakeview Towers, probably for the past 3 or 4 years. As my colleagues know, it is extraordinarily difficult to get affordable housing. There's many layers of financing and there's all different types of hoops to jump through. But this is something that I'm very proud to have in this ward. Lakeview Towers is just an incredible building that provides affordable housing. And with other residents in other parts of the ward who are hesitant to have affordable housing in their ward, I always encourage them to go to Lakeview Towers to see for themselves what good affordable housing is like. And so I was delighted to have Stephen as a part of this endeavor, and it's going to be run really well, and my community supports it as well. So I ask my colleagues to support it.
Thank you, Alderman. Do we have any questions from committee members for the Alderman or the applicant? Do I hear a motion do pass by the same roll call that was used to determine quorum? That was Alderman Raboyes moves do pass. Any objections? Hearing none, the item is passed.
Thank you very much.
And it's a very nice, handsome project, Alderman Kappelman, so congratulations. All right, middle of page 8, document number 20425, 47th Ward. Ordinance was referred on June 17th of 2020. Common address 3226 North Lincoln Avenue. The change request, B33, Community Shopping District to a C13 Neighborhood Commercial District. Ed Cuss. Ed?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Great, thank you. For the record, my name is Ed Cuss with the Taft Law Firm. I'm appearing this afternoon on behalf of the applicant, Lincoln Melrose LLC, for the property located at 3226 North Lincoln Avenue. We are requesting a zoning change from B3-3 to C1-3 for the sole purpose of obtaining an amusement license, the appropriate licenses for an amusement arcade. There's an existing 4-story mixed-use building. There will be no physical changes to that building except for the interior space on the ground floor. The first floor will be used by an operator who operates what's known as esports. And until I undertook this case, I really had no idea what esports were. But apparently it's competition with other people using your computer screens. So you will have this space by the operator with about 50 computer screens, and people pay to come in and use them and participate in various competitions in various sports. The applicant and potential operator met with the community group a few months ago, and I know we have a letter of support from Alderman Martin on this. For the record, there was also a memorandum of understanding between the proposed operator of the esports and the alderman, in which they would not serve liquor on the premises, and they would always maintain fully transparent windows at the pedestrian level, as requested by the Chamber of Commerce. And the business would close to the public no later than 11 p.m. So, in essence, we are requesting your support for the zoning change, and I am happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Ed. We do have a letter of support from Alderman Martin. I don't think Alderman is still on the call. No, I don't see him, but we do have a letter of support from Alderman Martin on that application. Any questions by committee members? Do I hear a motion do pass by the same roll call that was used to determine quorum?
So moved.
Alderman Burnett moves do pass. Any objections? Hearing none, the item is passed.
Thank you, Alderman.
Ed. All right, now we're in the middle of page 9.
It's this item.
Document number 20396, 10th Ward. Ordinance was referred on April 22nd of 2020. The common address is 3000 through 3148 East 122nd Street. The change request, Plan Manufacturing District 6 to Waterway Industrial Plan Development. We have Liz Butler.
So, Liz Butler. Christina Hubick.
All right, do we have Liz?
Christina Hubick. And Bill Bowman. Okay.
All right. Liz Butler.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. My name is Liz Butler from the law firm of DLA Piper, located at 444 West Lake Street. And I, along with my colleague Rich Clowder, represent MP Avenue O LLC, the applicant for a planned development for the property located at 3044 East 122nd Street. NP Avenue O LLC is an affiliate of North Point Development. I'm joined today by Christina Hubasek of North Point Development and Bill Bone of Jacob and Hefner Associates, the civil engineer for the project. The applicant is seeking to rezone the property from its current PMD 6 to an industrial waterway planned development to facilitate the development of the subject property with a 580,587 square foot Class A industrial building. The proposed plan development was considered and recommended for approval by the Chicago Plan Commission on June 18th. And we would request that the transcript of those proceedings and the resolution from the Plan Commission be incorporated into the record here today.
Alderman Burnett moves to incorporate the records from the Plan Commission by the same roll call that was used to determine quorum. Any objections? Hearing none, the records are incorporated. Continue, Liz.
Thank you. The subject property indicated in red on this diagram that's being shown right now is a portion of the approximately 200-acre site that's located at 118th Street and Avenue O, which North Point acquired in 2018. The site is the long vacant former location of the Republic Steel Mill. North Point is developing the 200-acre overall property with a high-quality industrial business park, which will include up to 5 state-of-the-art Class A industrial buildings, which will be constructed in multiple phases. When complete, the center, and here shown here is a view of the overall development with the subject property highlighted again in red. When complete, the overall park will contain roughly 2.2 million square feet of industrial space and will create as many as 660 permanent jobs. This will be the largest industrial development in Chicago since the creation of the neighboring 1.6 million square foot Ford Supplier Park, which now is also owned by North Point. The property that is the subject of the proposal before you today is a 48.6 acre portion of the overall park. This portion of the property is separated from the remainder of the site by the South Chicago and Southern Railroad right-of-way and is abutting the Calumet River on the west. It's currently vacant and unimproved. North Point is proposing to construct, like I mentioned, a 580,587 square foot Class A industrial building. Upon the subject property, the building will measure 51 feet in height. The project includes 384 vehicular parking spaces, 136 trailer parking spaces, 56 loading spaces, and 26 bicycle parking spaces. Maybe we could turn quickly back to the site plan just to say that the site plan does provide generous landscaping throughout the site, including a 30 to 35 foot landscaped setback along the west side of the site from the river. A total of 575 trees are provided and approximately 18 acres of naturalized area. 122nd Street at the south perimeter of the site is unimproved at this location. The applicant is constructing 122nd Street as part of this project and is also constructing portions of Burley Avenue. The roadways have been designed by the applicant to meet with CDOT's Phase 1 roadway design for this area. The project is going to redevelop a long vacant and blighted parcel with a project that's going to generate approximately 130 to 150 construction jobs. And this building will generate from anywhere from 174 to 200 permanent full-time jobs. Clayco is the GC for this project, and North Point has established hiring goals for the project of 26% MBE, 6% WBE, 50% City of Chicago resident hiring, and 10% 10th Ward resident hiring. The applicant has worked closely with Alderman Garza and the Department of Planning and Development on this project. I'm hoping that Alderman Garza is still on the line. We know that she is in support of the plan development, and I'm hoping that she is in attendance still to make remarks. We respectfully request that this committee recommends City Council approval of the application, and we appreciate your time and consideration of this project, and we're available to answer any questions that the committee may have. Thank you.
Thank you, Liz. We do have a letter of support from Alderman Garza. And are there any questions for the team on this one?
So moved.
All right, so no questions by committee members. Alderman Pat Dowell moves do pass as revised. And that motion would be on the same roll call that was used to determine quorum. So Alderman Dowell moves do pass. Any objections? Hearing none, the item is passed as revised. Thank you, Liz.
Thank you.
All right. Now we're on the bottom of page 9. Document number 20298 in the 27th Ward. The ordinance was referred on December 18th of 2019. Common address, 1200 West Carroll. Change request, M23 Light Industry District to a DX5 Downtown Mixed Use District, and then to a business plan development. Katie Jenke-Dale.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. For the record, my name is Katie Jenke-Dale from the law firm of DLA Piper. And along with my colleague, Rich Clowder, we represent the applicant in this matter, 1200 Carroll LLC. As a preliminary matter, this application was heard by the Planning Commission on June 18th, 2020. We would request that the record of those proceedings be incorporated into the record here today.
All right. Alderman David Moore moves to incorporate the records from the Plan Commission by the same roll call that was used to determine quorum. Any objections?
No.
Hearing none, the records are incorporated. Continue, Katie.
Great, thank you. The property is currently zoned M23 and located at the northwest corner of Carroll and Racine. We're requesting to take it to a DX5 and then to a business plan development to allow for the construction of a 14-story commercial building with approximately 90 parking spaces. As part of the plan development, we'd be seeking approval of a 3.1 FAR bonus, which results in a payment into the Neighborhood Opportunity Bonus Fund of over $4.3 million. We would also be subject to the industrial corridor conversion fee, resulting in a payment into that fund of approximately $734,000. The project is anticipated to create approximately 359 construction jobs and 2,440 permanent jobs once completed. We've worked very closely with Alderman Burnett as well as the various community groups. I believe Alderman Burnett was planning on attending today and speaking on this matter. We appreciate your time and consideration of this matter and respectfully request your approval. Also joined today, I should add, by representatives from the project architect Ginsler, as well as from the applicant Sterling Bay, if there are any questions for any of them. Thank you very much for your consideration and hopefully positive recommendation.
Thank you, Katie. We did, that was at Plan Commission, right? We did that? Okay. Alderman Burnett. Walter, we're on, you're muted. We're on Carroll.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you all very much. So they met with myself and members of the community. Everyone support the project. We had a community meeting. If I'm not mistaken, the community asked for a couple of things and they adhered to it. This developer works with my community very well. They are considering doing a joint venture with an African-American contractor, which is great, and hiring people from the community. I support this. I ask that the body support it also. Thank you.
Thank you, Alderman. Questions from committee members or comments? I do want to make a comment, Walter. It's a stunning piece of architecture. I just, we see a lot of projects, but it certainly is unique, and I hope I'm sure it will stand the test of time. So, questions?
Chairman.
Brendan, Alderman Riley.
Thank you, Chairman. Could you remind me what the address is for this project again?
1200 West Carroll.
Great. Thank you. Looks great. And congratulations, Alderman Burnett.
Okay. Any questions or comments from committee members? If not, I want a motion do pass by the same roll call that was used to determine quorum.
Move to pass.
Alderman Riley moves to pass. Any objections? Hearing none, the item is passed as revised. Thank you, Kate. All right. Now we're on the top of page 10, and we are in the 27th Ward, the document number 20371. In the 27th Ward, the ordinance was referred on April 22nd of 2020. The common address of this one is 932 through 940 West Randolph Street, and also 150 to 154 North Sangamon Street. Change request, C12, Neighborhood Commercial District to a DX5 Downtown Mixed Use District. Kate Duncan.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. My name is Kate Duncan, and I'm an attorney with Ackerman. I'm appearing this afternoon on behalf of the applicant L3 932 W Randolph LLC in connection with application number 20371. The subject property is located at 932 to 940 West Randolph Street and 150 to 154 North Sangamon Street. It's currently located in the C12 Commercial District, Neighborhood Commercial District. And the applicant has filed this application for a zoning amendment in order to reclassify the property to DX5 Downtown Mixed Use District. Mr. Chairman, we do have a substitute narrative and plans that are on file with the zoning department, and I would ask that you please adopt those herein.
So Alderman Ravoyas moves to accept the substantive narrative and plans for the type 1 application by the same roll call that was used to determine quorum. Objections? Thank you, Alderman. Hearing none, the substitute narrative and plans are accepted.
Thank you.
Kate?
This property, okay, thank you. This property is located within the historic Fulton Randolph Market District, and it is a non-contributing building in that district. The property is also located in the proposed expansion area for the DX5. The subject property contains an existing 3-story building that was formerly used as a bank and offices. And the applicant is actually proposing to renovate that existing 3-story building, including a small addition onto the existing building to create a 3-story masonry, glass, and steel building that conforms better with the character of the neighborhood. The applicant has submitted this application as a type 1 amendment, so all drawings for the proposed renovation of the existing building and the addition are incorporated into the ordinance. Applicant proposes to use the building for retail on the ground floor with boutique office space on the 2nd and 3rd floors. The property is located in Alderman Walter Burnett's ward, and the applicant has met with the West Central Association, the neighbors of the West Loop, and the West Loop Community Organization, and has received the support of all 3 of those organizations. And I believe the alderman is here today to speak on his behalf. And on behalf of my client, I would respectfully request your favorable recommendation, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
All right. Alderman Burnett, this is your ward.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. As the councilor said, they did meet with community organizations, all 3 of them, and we also had community meetings on this. This is not a big deal in this community. It may be in other communities, but and the young developers, they're young and ambitious and very cooperative. They committed to working with minority contractors and hiring people from the community. The community support this, I support this, and I ask that this body support it also.
Thank you, Alderman. Questions from committee members? I have Alderman Ray Lopez. Are you, you have your hand up on this one? No? That was my error. I think the only thing that I wanted to ask Kate, there's no plan, there's no slides with this one?
You know, I guess I didn't submit any slides for this. I can submit drawings over to Nicole and Raymond if you would like me to do so.
Oh, I mean, the alderman has spoken,
drawings.
but
Yes.
I think more the question was this in the context with the Fulton Historical. Did I hear that in your narrative?
Yes, so this building is a non-contributing building in the Fulton Market, the Fulton Randolph Market District. And we actually have been working with landmarks and will eventually go before the permit review committee of the Landmark Commission because this building needs to conform with the character of the community and of the historic district. And so we worked to make sure that we're sort of putting a new skin on the building, and we've worked to make sure that it conforms with the character of the historic district.
Also, Mr. Chairman.
Alderman Ryan, Alderman Burnett.
Also, Mr. Chairman, they haven't taken advantage of all of the FAR that they could have in this area. So, you know, as you can see, we're getting high rises in this community. They're not trying to do a high rise. They're keeping it low. These guys aren't trying to bite off more than what they can chew. And I appreciate them keeping the building in line with some of the existing buildings in the neighborhood.
Thank you, Alderman, for that clarification. And I just, you know, I know they're working with landmarks, and I just think it behooves us as we consider landmarking in various parts that I know I've worked with you on the Plan Commission where you've been able to add density in landmark districts and in order to really help the economics of such projects. So I just thought it might be pretty interesting to have the slides so people can see how a non-contributing parcel can add to the integrity of the landmark district. That was where I was going with that.
Okay.
Thank you. Okay. Any other questions for the applicant or Alderman Burnett? Okay, no questions more. Do I hear a motion do pass by the same roll call that was used to determine quorum?
We'll move, Mr. Chair.
Alderman Raboyes moves to pass. Any objections?
No.
Hearing none, the item is passed with substantive narrative and plans.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. All right, middle of page 10. Item number 20230 in the 22nd Ward. The ordinance was referred on October 16th of 19. Common address 4930 through 5004 West 44th Street. The change request, RS3 residential single unit detached house district to a C11 neighborhood commercial district and then to an institutional plan development. Amy Degnan.
Good afternoon. My name is
Amy.
Amy. Good afternoon, Chairman Tunney and members of the Zoning Committee. My name is Amy Degnan and I'm an attorney with Daly and Georges. I'm appearing today on behalf of the applicant, Academy for Global Citizenship, on application number 20230. This application was presented to and received a favorable recommendation of the Chicago Plan Commission at its meeting on July 16th, 2020. I ask that the report of proceedings, including a substitute ordinance, as well as the reports and drawings previously transmitted to the Plan Commission and the Department of Planning and Development, be incorporated into and made part of this proceeding.
All right, Amy, then we'll have two motions, correct? The first one, Alderman David Moore moves to incorporate the records from the Plan Commission by the same roll call that was used to determine quorum. Any objections on that one? Hearing none, those records are incorporated. And then a follow-up with that, we have Alderman Raboyes moves to accept the substitute by the same roll call that was used to determine quorum. And any objections to the substitute?
So move.
Hearing no objections, the substitute is accepted. Okay, continue.
Thank you. With us this afternoon is Aaron Lavin Cabinargi, the Development Advisor to the Academy for Global Citizenship, as well as Alderman Michael Rodriguez, who I believe will want to speak on the project. The project site is located at the 22nd Ward. The site is approximately 6.2 acres and is bound on the north by I-55, on the west by Hearst Park, on the south by 44th Street, and on the east by LaPorte Avenue. The Academy for Global Citizenship has been educating children on the Southwest side for the last 12 years at 2 different leased locations. AGC is proposing to build a unified school campus for pre-K through 8th grade, including a net zero school building, a barn for agricultural learning, and an institute for visiting professors and scholars. The site was previously the LeClaire Courts, owned by the Chicago Housing Authority. LeClaire Courts was demolished 10 years ago. Subject to the plan development approval, all bulk and use density items will be in compliance with the zoning ordinance. The developer participated in a series of community meetings hosted by Alderman Michael Rodriguez to present the project and obtain community support. Alderman Rodriguez provided a letter of support with this application, as well as the Archer Heights Civic Association and the Bidham Park Civic League. I submitted those letters of support to the committee earlier this week. We'd now like to go through the project with Erin Lavin Cabanargi.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman and committee members. My name is Erin Lavin Cabanargi, for the record, to present the Academy for Global Citizen project to you. As Amy mentioned, we're 12 years in the neighborhood. We have an enrollment of just under 500 students, which will expand, adding early childhood education as we consolidate these 2 campuses. This school is International Baccalaureate World School, as well as a dual language program. It is public, tuition free, and open to all residents of Chicago. AGC currently serves students who are 96% minority, 24% of whom are special needs. Additionally, 96% of the students live within 5 miles of the new campus. AGC's goal is to have the students outside 30% of the day, and you'll see that reflected in the design of the entire campus itself. This area has been identified by the city as having limited access to grocery stores, higher food insecurity, and higher diabetes hospitalization rates. The site, as you can see, and as Amy mentioned, is just over 6 acres in the former LeClaire Courts development. I should state that we are also working very closely with Cabrera and Habitat, who are CHA's awarded redeveloper of that parcel immediately to the east, as well as to the Park District. The Park District has Hearst Park immediately to the west of our site. As Amy mentioned, this will not only be highly sustainable, this will be Living Building Challenge certified. There are only 24 other such buildings within the entire world. So it is a far higher level of sustainability achieved, and that's imbued and embedded into the educational program as well. So the site will be incorporated not only by the school building, but we have a learning barn and an institute for visiting fellows. We have production greenhouses for year-round produce processing, a community garden plots, teaching kitchens, farm store. We have a wind turbine, as well as educational greenhouses, etc. You'll see here the rendering that shows the respect to the urban street grid, re-establishing that urban street wall at 44th and LaPorte. In the rear of the site, as you look north towards the expressway and the rail lines, you're going to see 12 hoop houses that grow food production. This is a school that furnishes breakfast, lunch, and snacks to all 500 of its students on a daily basis. Additionally, you'll see the barn and the production greenhouse, as well as the Institute for Visiting Fellows. I do want to point out our partnership with Erica Allen and the Urban Growers Collective, who will facilitate the barn and production itself. This is the floor plan. It's a 2-story building, nearly 72,000 square feet. It's a central atrium with a pinwheel design, intentionally developed in a way to encourage these students to go outside. There are entrances and exits in the 4 cardinal directions with wonderful view corridors and a tremendous layout that really just has a centrifugal force getting folks outside. This is the second floor plan. One of the things I want to point out are the learning garden balconies, but one in particular to the north that has stairs and slide all the way out to encourage the students to get outside. The partie here from an architectural standpoint pays homage to the Continental Divide, which is very close to the portage and water pathways that are a part of Chicago's history, that are very close to the site. This is immediately south of the Stickney water purification plant and a very vital part of the portage history of Chicago. And so this design looks to the glacial pathways and the recession, leaving glacial drumlins in place that you'll see as we look at the elevations. We'll go quickly through these slides, but this is the pedestrian context at 44th Street. Here are a handful of elevations, very handsome building, attractive work with Corten steel or similar colored metal panels announcing the entrance, cementitious board panels. Next slide, please. And then the north view shows that glacier and the drumlin that butts up against it. In the center, you can see the stairway and the slide that allows kids to literally slide out of the second floor of the school itself to get out to the constructed wetland, to get out to the hoop houses, to get out to the chickens and the goats, and maybe even a llama. Next, you're seeing a handful of vantage points from throughout the campus itself. And this is a little bit more of the site development with hoop houses, earthen berms, wind turbine, etc. This is a series of renderings of both the Institute and the barn, all within the same color wave and materiality. And a material palette where you can begin to see that. Wanted to share with you some of the community meetings that we've had. We've met not only with the Hearst community organization leaders, Archer Heights, as Amy mentioned, we have a series of letters of support. We've also been to meet with the Federation of Women Contractors, as well as HACIA, and had virtual discussions with BCOE and BCU, given the COVID pandemic. But we'll continue to work with all of these assist agencies to the best that we can to bring them into the process of procurement. Forgive me. This slide indicates the 3, and there are actually 4 agreements we're bound by in terms of our diversity and inclusion. There's a community benefits agreement, a CBA with CHA and community residents that was signed as a condition of the purchase and sale agreement for CHA to sell the property to the Academy for Global Citizenship. Second, and more recently, and with great thanks to the aldermen, we've negotiated a memorandum of understanding with the Leclerc Courts, Local Advisory Council, and the Hearst Community Organization. And obviously, because this is a plan development, we'll be bound to Executive Order 2017-2. And fourth, and should have made the slide, my apologies, is the grant agreement with the state of Illinois. We're very grateful to the state of Illinois, specifically the Rebuild Illinois legislation that is affording $31 million to fund this project. So as such, the floors, not the ceilings, the floors of our participation will include both business participation and workforce participation. That includes the standard and aspiring to hire, but will also include the CHA Section 3 resident-owned business engagement, as well as the CHA resident hiring provisions. The school itself will create both temporary jobs associated with construction as well as permanent jobs on site. The permanent job creation will be roughly 25 to 30 additional staff members. And the construction jobs, the temporary jobs, are approximately 120 full-time equivalencies. But as you all know, construction is quite temporal. And so it will create between 960 people on site to 1,200 people on site as a result of this project. We're happy to answer any questions that you may have, and we're grateful for your consideration and hope for your favorable ruling.
Thank you, Aaron, and thank you for your many years of leadership on education. So I just wanted to say that for the record, you and I have worked
Thank you, Alderman.
for a very long time, especially our dual language academy in Lakeview. But
indeed,
I just wanted to say thank you again. We're going to hear from Alderman Michael Rodriguez before we take some questions.
Thank you, Chairman, and thank you for this opportunity to present. Thank you, Amy and Aaron. You know, we have a master plan the community's developed that's called the Gateway to Midway that goes from the I-55 Expressway to Midway Airport along Cicero Avenue. And I'm considering this the first phase of the redevelopment of the Gateway to Midway. Excited to have this school coming in that'll have world-class elements to it. Very positive learning environment for young people in our community. And I'm also excited that the local neighborhood organizations are the 3 major resident organizing groups have either signed letters of support, or in the case of the Leclerc Right to Return residents and the Hearst Community Organization, which is immediately adjacent to this development, and a majority African American community has signed on to a memorandum of understanding that further defines the participation, access to the building, collaboration, monthly meetings during construction. So I'm excited to support this and hope and urge my colleagues to join me in supporting this endeavor. Thank you.
Thank you, Alderman. We have a couple hands up. We'll start with Alderman Pat Dowell.
Hi, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Hi, Aaron. I didn't know anything about this school, so I was doing a little bit of research online about this Academy for Global Citizenship, and was also listening to you when you talked about diversity and inclusion and how you guys were approaching this project. And as I look at the website, and I know you didn't really share the demographics of the students who attend here, and I'd be interested in hearing that. What I noticed is that there are no, besides Erica, and it looks like a very large board, there are no African Americans on the board. There are no African Americans as staff. And when we're talking about global citizenship, of course, African Americans and Africans and all the Black people in the diaspora are part of that tapestry. So I was wondering if you could speak to, I know this is a zoning matter, but I wanted, in order for me to support this, I would like to just understand more about your approach to diversity and inclusion in the school itself.
Pat, you're muted.
Oh no, she's going in and out. She's having technical difficulties.
Yeah, Alderman Dow, you're muted again. You unmuted, then remuted.
Yes, okay. I also see that this school is being built on land that housed the former residents of Leclerc Courts. So I just want to get a little more understanding about the school itself.
Alderman, this is Amy Degnan with Daly and George's. The AGC, the student body for AGC is comprised of 96% minority, and of that, 24% are special needs students. They also have a 96% of all of the students live within a 5-mile radius of the school. So it's really serving that southwest corridor. I mean, I can provide
you break the 96 down for me so I understand what you mean by minority.
I can provide that detail through the chair. All I have is the 96%. I'm not sure, Aaron, do you have more detail on the 96%?
I don't, I'm sorry to say.
Okay,
I can tell you that according to the Metro Agency for Planning, this area is heavily Latino. But we can follow up, as Amy mentioned.
Yes, we can provide a breakdown of the 96% through the chair.
Well, can you address my concern regarding the board and staff?
So that question is for Amy and your team, the board and the staff breakdown.
The breakdown is visible on the website, Chairman. I just wanted to know if they had any plans, since this is a school that focuses on global citizenship, and Aaron's remarks were specific about diversity and inclusion, whether or not that value was going to be reflected in the operations of the school.
Alderman Dowell, thank you. Again, Amy Degnan with Daly and George's. We can work with the Academy for Global Citizenship to, again, provide some additional information through the chair about their staffing needs and desires and goals. The two women that serve as the principals for the school are Hispanic. I don't have more of a breakdown today. I can, like I said, provide that through the chair along with the breakdown of the 96%.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
All right.
Amy, the only information I'm interested in at this point is the breakdown of the student body. The staffing board composition is evident on the website. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Alderman Dowell. Alderman Ray Lopez.
Thank you, Chairman. Again, members of the committee. For those of you who don't know, I actually grew up not 3 blocks from this location. I remember when the LeClaire courts were the LeClaire courts. And I'm very familiar with the community and homeowners that are in the surrounding Hearst community. My grandfather actually was one of the military veterans who actually got some of the housing when that area was first created and bought and stayed and raised his family there as well. So this area has always had a special place in my heart. But I am concerned. While I think it's great that this school finally comes out of the 2 offshoot campuses, one on 47th, both I think on 47th Street, if I remember correctly, into a solid campus. And I think it's great that Alderman Rodriguez and as well State Senator Tony Munoz were able to put the funds together to make this happen. I think the concerns that Alderman Dowell raised are the same ones that I was going to raise as well, is that, you know, where this campus is going was the epicenter for the Black community in that area. As segregated as the city is, it was never any more segregated than right there. Everything west of Cicero and north of 47th Street for the last 35 years has basically been solidly almost 99.9% African American, with maybe my grandfather and 2 others being the 0.2%. But if we're not ensuring that the opportunities that are coming out of the ashes of what used to be LeClaire courts are not incorporating the Black community, I have a problem with that. And I saw that you've reached out to the Black contractors and some other groups. And yes, I do know that the surrounding area on the other side of the Vinham Park, Sleepy Hollow, and Archer Heights neighborhoods are predominantly Latino. And I'm very familiar with those neighborhoods. It's almost a slap in the face to say that we're working with everybody when the group that we displaced is not allowed to participate. And that bothers me. It bothers me a lot because I remember the folks that live there. I remember the folks in the stores in Mrs. Sims that used to be on 45th and Cicero Avenue that I'd go after school sometimes to get our candy and stuff and try to ride the bike and get yelled at for crossing Cicero Avenue. I remember those stores. I remember those people that lived there. And to not have the information or to not be able to tell us that our focus is on putting the people associated with that area to work gives me great pause. And I think that our questions about diversity, our questions about student enrollment, and the questions that will be undoubtedly about who is actually having access to the jobs of building this, I think that, you know, I'm all for moving forward, but I think these questions should have been ready for today, knowing damn well that we always ask these questions, and more importantly, the location where we're doing it. And I, for one, Chairman, have no problem saying yes so that we can move forward. But I think that before this gets reported out, there better be some answers. And if the answers don't come by tomorrow, then I would ask that if you are intent on moving forward with this today as a vote, that you don't report it out tomorrow until the city council has the opportunity to review all of this, because I'd hate to vote against this. But I think there's still probably plenty of room for opportunity to address everything that I just brought up.
Alderman.
Okay.
Oh, go ahead.
No, please.
Go ahead, Aaron.
I was
No
just
fighting,
going
please.
Thank you for your comments, Alderman, and certainly the same to Alderman Dowell. What I wanted to make sure I articulated was the absolute respect and partnership that we've come to enjoy with the right to return citizens. And Alderman Rodriguez can speak to it in a little bit more detail, but we've had dozens of meetings that culminated in a memorandum of understanding that guarantees hiring opportunities, both in construction and long-term, with the Hearst and LeClaire community organizations specifically. This is not with the greater Vidham Park or Sleepy Hollow. It's a pointed memorandum of understanding specific to job opportunities, hiring, training, partnership, and even more so, the right to return constituency has been absolutely lovely and offered partnership, and we've offered utilization of facilities. There's been numerous meetings to address that, and forgive me if we failed to do a better job of explaining the MOU. I was being respectful of the numerous chastisements that Chairman Tunney had given to prior speakers, so perhaps I went too quickly through those 4 elements that bind our agreement and bind our construction. There will be numerous opportunities for hiring. To Alderman Dowell's question about board composition, that is something we're not prepared to speak about, and how that can evolve over time. But I can assure you, being in numerous meetings with the school, the educators, the people on staff are highly diverse, as Amy mentioned. Both lead educators, upper school principal and lower school principal, are both Latinx women, but there are numerous African. In fact, if you look at the PowerPoint deck, you can see one of our favorite African-American teachers that's on staff. So the staff is highly diverse. We'll get you the exact number of that, but the board leadership is something that unfortunately neither Amy nor I can speak to directly. I can absolutely assure you that the diversity of the people employed through construction will be paramount. This is something that is a condition of the state grant agreement, the executive order, the memorandum of understanding, as well as the CBA. We have 4 binding agreements that dictate not only our aspirational goals, but our reporting on regular cycles. In fact, so much so that we cannot receive the state grant funding without compliance. It's not aspirational. It is a all or nothing type of a funding mechanism. And so I do apologize for failing to spend enough time on this, but it is something that is imbued in every aspect of how we plan to proceed with this project.
I'm sorry, Chairman, I didn't know if Amy was going to add to that or if they're both answering the same question.
Amy Degnan with Daly and George's. Aaron did a great job of answering, covered most of what I was going to say. We will provide those breakdowns by the end of the day for staff as well as students. And I don't know if Alderman Rodriguez wanted to add anything. I just wanted to reiterate what Aaron said. I mean, we had bi-weekly meetings at one point with the former LeClaire Courts representative to draft and work through that MOU. So the communication had been extensive through this whole process, and it was led by Alderman Michael Rodriguez. And he did, we, as Aaron said, have 4 now binding contracts that require diversity and outreach throughout this construction process, and as well as the school as it, becomes a great neighbor of the neighborhood.
I also failed to mention that I used to serve as the chair of the Public Building Commission for nearly a decade and stand on my record of more than 40% participation. Again, as a floor, not a ceiling, we're striving to achieve well over and above that. We believe very strongly we are individual advocates, as well as this client being an advocate of diversity and inclusion in the workforce and in the participation of the investment in this community.
All right. I've got a few more of my colleagues.
Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Alderman. Alderman David Moore.
Thank you. I'm gonna belabor the point because I could swear that Alderman Lopez is sitting at my desk looking at my notes. Anytime that I deal with anything from CHA, I'm always looking, because working there and seeing what happened there, and displacement, and people wanting the right return, anything that go up there for me, it's very important. But what's holding me up, because it's more of I hope it's not a one man's crusade, but it's something that I'm looking at, especially after COVID, after the looting and everything like that, even closer. And that's to what Alderman Dow brought up in terms of what boards look like. And until we start challenging and forcing people to have their companies reflective of what this city, if what we thought we saw a couple of weeks ago is not going to happen again, it's going to be worse. And when people say, I can't wait till we get back to normal, I always say, I don't want to go back because that wasn't normal. Us begging for contracts, us constantly asking people to have their boards representative of what our city is, and especially on a land that Alderman Lopez articulated so well, that housed so many African Americans, and but for the demolition of there would still be there. And so with hopes of returning, and then yet nothing is built. And then when something gets built, it's not with 100% full complete participation. So right now, I'm going to be a no on this as of today. If somebody can give some information about who the contractors are on this project and everything, that'd be helpful for me as well. That may help me change my mind. But it may not if I can't get a good answer about what this company is doing in terms of their board, because people are reflective of what they do, not what they say they're going to do. So I just wanted to add that in. So thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Alderman. Amy, do you want to respond to that? Are you giving us information so that if we do?
I can speak to the contractor piece, if I may.
Yep.
Okay.
Chairman.
Aaron, start with you then.
So because this is the Rebuild Illinois Grant Foundation, this will be heavily minority. I also just looked through my notes in terms of staffing, so I'll address that first. The staffing is majority minority staffing in my notes. We will get that ethnic breakdown both by student population as well as staffing, but certainly appreciate Alderman Moore, the emphasis on the board participation itself. As it relates to general contracting, we have not yet selected. It's premature to, in the phase of the project we're in, to have selected our general contractor fully yet. We're working through that process through a procurement. We have not signed a guaranteed maximum price with any contractor yet at this point. That is part of the outreach we'll be required to develop, and what we've begun with all of the assist agencies, with the state, et cetera.
Thank you.
Amy?
Aaron covered it. I have nothing.
Okay. All right. Alderman Gil Villegas, please.
Chairman, I've lowered my hand. I apologize.
Okay. All righty. So I'm going to ask for, I don't see any more raised hands. Do I get a motion to pass on this item by the same roll call that was used to determine quorum?
Motion to pass.
With the exception of David Moore voting no.
Okay, well, let me get that. Motion was by Alderman Cicho. Okay, great. All right. So Alderman Cicho Lopez moves to pass. We have an objection from Alderman David Moore.
And Alderman Dow.
And Alderman Dow. Any other objections?
Lopez, Alderman, the other Lopez.
Oh.
The original.
All right. All right. So let me say, the record will reflect the 3 noes. And with that, can I get, the motion was made do pass. So it'll be passed it'll be passed with the idea that the objections were noted by Alderman Dowell, Alderman Moore, and Alderman, the original Raymond Lopez. All right. Thank you very much. The item is passed. All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Now we're going to the bottom of page 10, and I believe this is our last private application. Item number 20405, 27th Ward. The ordinance was referred on May 20th of 2020. The common address is 171 through 185 North Halsted Street, 729 through 741 West Lake Street, and 728 through 740 West Couch Place. The change request, plan development number 1252 to plan development number 1252 as amended. Greg Stedman.
Mr. Chairman, can you hear me?
I can hear you, Greg.
Very good. Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. For the record, my name is Gregory Stedman. I'm the attorney on behalf of the applicant 733 West Lake Street Incorporated. As a plenary matter, this matter was before the Chicago Planning Commission on June 18th, and I'd ask that the records of the Chicago Planning Commission be incorporated and entered into the record of these proceedings.
Alderman Cardona moves to incorporate the records from the Plan Commission by the same roll call that was used to determine quorum. Any objections? Hearing none, the records are incorporated. Greg, you can continue.
Thank you. The ordinance before the committee seeks to technically amend planned development number 1252. Planned development 1252 contains the Parker Fulton Market apartment building. It is the only building located in planned development 1252. The Parker Fulton Market apartment building is generally located at 730 West Couch Place in the West Loop and Central Planning region of the city of Chicago. It is owned by Parker Owner LLC, which is a joint venture between Chase Bank and Atlantic Residential. Atlantic Residential manages the building. The applicant 733 West Lake Street Incorporated is a proposed packaged goods liquor business owned by Mr. Nick Patel. Mr. Patel has signed a lease with the Parker to open a liquor store on the north side of the building at 737 West Lake Street. Prior to signing the lease, Mr. Patel met with Alderman Burnett, who agreed to lift the packaged goods liquor moratorium on Lake Street. Mr. Patel could obtain the support of the local police district and West Loop Community Association. After meeting with Mr. Patel, the local police district and West Loop Community Association expressed their support for the store under the condition that Mr. Patel would agree to operate under a plan of operation. West Loop Community Association subsequently sent a letter of support to Alderman Burnett, which detailed the conditions of the plan of operation. After receiving the letter from West Loop, Alderman Burnett submitted an ordinance to lift the packaged goods moratorium on West Lake Street. The ordinance passed License Committee on March 11th, 2020, and passed City Council on April 24th, 2020. Plan Development 1252 was originally passed by the City Council in September of 2014. At that time, the building was owned by 171 Partners LLC. In November of 2014, the owner's representative, DLA Piper, requested and was granted an administrative adjustment to reduce the number of required street parking spaces from 159 to 137. And in 2017, the building was sold to the current owners, Parker Owner LLC. Plan Development 1252 contains language in paragraph 5 detailing permitted uses within the plan development. The language in the plan development reads that food and beverage retail sales are permitted, provided that liquor sales shall only be accessory use. The applicant is now seeking to amend the existing plan development by deleting the accessory use liquor sale language in order to establish a liquor store within one of the grade level spaces on Lake Street within the existing building. The plan development will also be amended to reflect the new ownership of the building by Parker Owner LLC and to reflect the 2014 administrative adjustment granted by the city, reducing the required minimum off-street parking spaces from 159 to 137. I respectfully ask this committee for your favorable consideration and vote for this ordinance, and I'd be happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
All right. I believe this is Walter. Alderman Burnett.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. As the counselor said, they met with me. They also met with the local police, and they also met with the local community organization. The community see no problem with lifting the moratorium here to allow for the liquor store to be open. It's unfortunate that we had to do a zoning change to in order for this to happen. But I'm in support of it, and I ask for this committee support also. Thank you.
Questions for the alderman or the applicant?
No questions, so move.
All right, so no more questions. I think that was Alderman David Moore.
Yes.
Who's to pass on the item by the same roll call that was used to determine the quorum. Any, was that an objection there?
Not my dog.
Yeah, all right. All right. Hearing no objections, the item is passed as revised. All right.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay. Now, thank you for all your patience. I'm going to now, lastly, we will have a direct introduction to the committee, a proposed ordinance tolling code section 2-120-705 to permit further consideration of a proposed Pilsen landmark district. I'm going to ask our Commissioner Maurice Cox to explain the direct introduction, and then we'll proceed with questions from the committee. So I'll
Chairman,
Commissioner Cox.
Chairman, this is Alderman Sicho Lopez. I just want to make sure that we, I want to put forward a motion to lay this issue on the table. And also want to understand, how this process came about. And also, I barely got notice of this, so I want to understand exactly what's going on.
Here's what we're going to do. I'm going to ask Commissioner Cox to explain the ordinance and some of the work. If there's a request of the committee, whether it be Alderman Lopez or others, to lay it on the table, I just really want our committee members to know that this tolling ordinance extends for a 6-month period for the aldermen, city departments, and the community to hear out what is being presented by the Department of Planning. And so
Point of information, Chairman. Point of information.
Alderman Lopez, I'm not finished yet. Okay. So what I'm saying is to the committee members, we basically have two options here. We have the landmark recommendation that will expire in August if there is not passage of this tolling ordinance. So it is really an effort to help you, Alderman Lopez, to help the community, because if we decide to either lay it on the table or reject it, the landmark recommendation will become law. And that
Point of information.
That is not a help. I'm not finished yet. That's not a help to you or your community. Now, Alderman Sicho Lopez.
Yeah, I just want to make sure, that we got this very clear. So this landmark, because I think it's important, the point of information, there's really some real troubling assumptions that are here. And I think that they're boxing my community in, this dichotomy and options that were unfortunately created. So I just want to lay it out for point of information before the commissioner starts, because it is important that we are given the opportunity as a elected representative. And I'm glad that my colleagues had the opportunity to hear this. I want to make sure, Chairman, I was given the.
Okay, but Alderman Lopez, you have to, this is the mayor's ordinance. So we're going to hear from the department, and then you will be able to rebut and respond and criticize and do whatever. This is a direct introduction from the mayor, and I'm going to ask the commissioner to speak. There'll be plenty of rebuttal by the committee members and yourself. So with that, I'm going to ask Commissioner Cox to begin.
Thank you, Commissioner Tunney, and to members of the board. I have 3 slides that I've asked be projected while I review this, if they can be brought up. And I look forward to a robust conversation upon the conclusion of these brief remarks. So if whomever is controlling the slides can put them up, that would be welcome. Thank you.
Yep, just give me 1 second. I'm looking for it on my, it's not popping up.
Is it going to happen? Should I just begin speaking?
It will. I'm sorry, it's not, there we go. It wasn't popping up on my options of share.
Okay, excellent. All right, so thank you very much. So, so members of the committee, thank you. Just for the record, I'm Maurice Cox, the Commissioner for the Department of Planning and Development. So the request before you is the approval of the proposed ordinance tolling section 2-120-705 of the municipal code to permit further consideration of the proposed Pilsen Historic District as a Chicago landmark. So before I go over the reasons for that request, let me re-familiarize you with the proposed district boundaries. So on May 16th, 2019, the Commission on Chicago Landmarks adopted a resolution recommending that the Pilsen Historic District be designated a Chicago landmark. The Commission determined that the Pilsen Historic District, predominantly located on West 18th Street between South Levitt and South Sangamon Streets, and 13 blocks bounded by West 18th Street on the north, South Ashland Avenue on the west, and West 21st Street to the south and South Racine Avenue to the east. It satisfied at least 4 criteria for landmark designation. The Commission filed the recommendation with the City Council on May 16, 2019. Pursuant on the section 2-120-705 of the municipal code, and I quote, "If the City Council does not take final action upon any landmark recommendation submitted by the Commission on Chicago Landmarks to the City Council within 365 days of the date upon the recommendation is filed with the City Council, landmark designation based upon the recommendation of the Commission shall be granted," end quote. The 365-day period was tolled from March 17th, 2020 through June 30th, 2020, pursuant to Article 2, Section 2 of the ordinance adopted by City Council on April 24th, 2020. And so the 365-day deadline for the City Council to take final action regarding the designation on the Pilsen Historic District will now expire on August 28, 2020. So the ordinance in front of you today is to toll the 365-day period again until no later than January 31st, 2021. Without the passage of the ordinance before you today, the original landmark ordinance will take effect on August 29th, 2020. So community engagement has occurred throughout the landmark designation process. And I think it's really, really important to underscore, for the benefit of those of us who were not here, how this has been socialized and how by approving this tolling ordinance, we will allow further public consideration of the recommendation to designate the Pilsen Historic District. So here's the timeline as I have understood it. On December 6, 2018, the Commission on Chicago Landmarks approved preliminary landmark recommendations in its public hearing. There were public comments in that public hearing. There were 8 speakers. 7 of the speakers spoke in favor of the district. 1 opposed. On December 31st, 2018, a letter was sent to all of the owners in the district. 889 properties were notified about this preliminary recommendation. On January 10th, 2019, the Commission on Chicago Landmarks approved the DPD report at its public meeting. There were public comments at that meeting as well. In this meeting, 6 people spoke. 2 spoke in favor and 4 spoke unopposed. In February 7th, 2019, the Landmarks Commission adopted the preliminary summary of information report at its public meeting. Once again, public comment was solicited. 4 individuals testified. All 4 testified in favor of the landmark district. So in March 7th, 2019, the Landmarks Commission issued a preliminary disapproval of a demolition application that was submitted on 1734 West 18th Street at its public meeting. They were able to disapprove the demolition because of this pending district consideration. March 26th of 2019, letters were sent out to owners. All 889 properties were notified. The letters went out in English and in Spanish. So that we would be disapproving of the demolition application and triggered an expedited consideration on of both the proposed designation and the demo application, and notified them again of a community public hearing that would happen on April 16th. At that same time, the planning department launched an informational website in both Spanish and in English on the historic district. And that website remains open today, where people can find extensive information about the historic designation proposal. So at the point of April 3rd, 2019, the planning department staff met with representatives of the Pilsen Alliance. On April 11th, 2019, the planning department staff met with representatives of the United Merchants of Pilsen. On April 12th, 2019, the planning department staff met with representatives of several Pilsen community organizations, including the Resurrection Project, the 18th Street Development Corporation, Al Vivo Medical Center, and the Pilsen Neighbors Community Council. On April 16th, 2019, the planning department convened a community meeting in Lozano Library in Pilsen, and it was attended by over 140 people. And in fact, I was told that the Alderman Cicho Lopez, then an Alderman-elect, attended this meeting. April 24th, 2019, a public hearing on the district was attended by 27 property owners, community residents, and members of the general public, and Alderman-elect Cicho Lopez. Statements made by 22 individuals, which included property owners, business owners, and members of the general public, spoke directly about the district. Apologies. And so that was a very robust process of engagement. All voices were heard, and the district itself, the benefits and the responsibilities of the district were covered. On May 16th, 2019, the final landmark recommendation to City Council was forwarded. Public comments were given by 9 individuals at that time. 4 spoke out against, and 5 spoke in favor. So June 17th, 2019, the planning department staff attended a community roundtable meeting. This specifically was to create a more intimate, smaller group setting. And this was the beginning of our partnership with Alderman Cicho Lopez. It was organized by his office, and 15 people attended the meeting. June 19th, 2019, the planning department staff attended another community roundtable, once again organized by Alderman Cicho Lopez's office, specifically geared to smaller groups. July 8th, 2019, community open house was organized with the Alderman's office for the planning staff to have office hours to answer questions one-on-one to residents. On July 11th, 2019, the planning department participated in a community meeting organized by the Alderman Cicho Lopez, where approximately 150 people attended the meeting. And so, to characterize this as anything other than a robust attempt to inform and educate the residents of Pilsen, I think would be a mischaracterization. Now, I will tell you, I joined this effort in the fall of 2019. And on November 1st, I spent 3 hours driving the streets of Pilsen and Little Village with Alderman Cicho Lopez. And we talked extensively about the benefits of a historic district and how he had the opportunity to do something that has not been done with the historic district before in Chicago. And that is to make it work for the folks who are there. And so I committed to him then to bring every tool that at my disposal to make sure that this district was truly a unique district that empowered residents. So I made that commitment. In March 6, 2020, myself and members from the mayor's office met in the alderman's office. There were 12 to 15 community groups there. We committed to working with them to design a unique historic district tailored to the needs of Pilsen. That was in March. And I will tell you, that's when the coronavirus hit. And frankly, it challenged us to hold the public's attention in the face of that crisis. So my staff and I, we went into a deep research to understand what tools we could bring forward that would make this district address the issues that I have been hearing. I have personally called a number of community leaders. I'm certainly not finished, but I am committed to hearing from them all. And they have been schooling me as to the perceptions, misperceptions about historic districts and how this needs to be different. I held those conversations with the CEO of the Instituto del Progreso Latino, with Mario Perez, and as well with Raul Raimondo. And so those were my last efforts in an effort to continue the process of engagement. I need more time to fully engage. So that is why I am asking for this 6-month extension. So if you go to my last slide, and I'm wrapping up. So, Pilsen has been preserved, protected, and enriched by the Latino community since they first settled in this neighborhood over 60 years ago. I mean, century-old housing has been rehabbed by those same families. The stores on 18th Street were opened by Latino small business owners, and they've continued to serve this community. The churches in the neighborhood have remained vibrant. The schools are full of children who are building their childhood memories on the physical character of Pilsen. The walls have been enriched with colorful murals celebrating the Latino culture. This is the level of stewardship and community engagement that has preserved Pilsen thus far as one of Chicago's most vibrant historic areas. This designation represents two important firsts for the city's landmark program. It's the first that recognizes the contributions and culture of Chicago's Latinx community, and it's the first to incorporate the murals and architecture as a layered historic resource. The landmark designation is the city's effort to act on the physical environment to protect the cultural and social environment. Every commercial building on 18th Street that is demolished is a loss of a Latino small business owner. Every single family house that's demolished is a loss of families who shop locally and whose kids attend neighborhood schools. As we lose the physical fabric of Pilsen, we lose the community of Pilsen. So the landmark designation would slow down the demolitions that we've observed over the past 12 years. Over 90 structures have been lost. We will hit the pause button and have a community conversation and talk about the impacts of any demolition that's proposed. The buildings, such as the ones you see illustrated in this slide, would otherwise be lost. And these families and these businesses would be dispersed to make way for a newer structure and newer residents. And we simply believe that that should not happen. And DPD will continue to engage the community regarding possible solutions that the city can provide. And there are many that we can provide to address the issues that residents and communities have brought up regarding Pilsen. So on behalf of the Department of Planning and Development, I recommend approval of the proposed ordinance tolling section 2-120-705 of the municipal code to permit further consideration of the proposed Pilsen Historic District as a Chicago landmark. Thank you, Chairman Tunney.
Thank you, Commissioner. And I know while you're relatively new to Chicago, it seems to me that you've been totally engaged in the 25th Ward, trying to educate and move this landmark ordinance. And again, I want to tell the committee members that what we're doing is giving more time for all sides to be heard. And also, I do believe, Commissioner, that you had offered some very unique incentives to this district. I don't know if you're prepared to speak on them at this point.
I absolutely am, because they are a product, quite frankly, of a robust set of conversations that I have had with the aldermen and community members. So for example, Chicago has never used the Adopt a Landmark Fund to go towards the typical mercantile buildings that you find on 18th Street. They have tended to go toward the more iconic neighborhood buildings like churches. So I have been working with my staff to set up a fund and adopt the landmark fund for Pilsen, commercial corridor, and we would put $1 million a year annually for 3 years that are available to the local long-term property owners. These would be grants up to $50,000. It would go for a rehab, for exterior facade improvements. It's a way that those who own the properties on 18th Street can invest in their property and not have to sell. This is a first. We haven't done this for any historic district in the city. In addition, we are looking at guidelines. We have committed $70,000 to create Pilsen-specific guidelines so that the guidelines that govern other historic districts will not be a burden to residents and property owners in the Pilsen district. We want to make sure that they know how to maximize the potential of their property while they at the same time preserve their property. I also believe that the murals which populate Pilsen, which are a part of the Latino culture, should be preserved. And so we've set aside $30,000 to do that historic preservation scan and set of suggestions for how to preserve them. But a lot of people have talked about housing and the fact that there needs to be a greater homeowner assistance effort in Pilsen and Little Village as a whole. So I have been working with my partner, Commissioner Navarro, to come up with first of its kind, multi-million-dollar homeowner assistance fund that we would be able to start at the beginning of the adoption of this ordinance. And I'm committed to tailoring that so that it meets the needs of residents who are there. And I could go on. A big issue that Alderman Cicho Lopez raised was the idea of local control. And I agree that the decisions that are made about the future of Pilsen, every project that is proposed for demolition should come before a locally controlled commission. So I have done extensive research to understand this, how it would play out in Chicago, and I'm prepared to design that with community members so that Pilsen has local control. And so for every issue that may be a unintended consequence of this district, I have tried to bring this forward in the spirit of partnership. And so I want to continue to do this work. Obviously, I believe in the district. I believe that we can do something that has never been done before in Chicago. I simply want the opportunity to engage people to that end.
And that's why you support the direct introduction.
That is exactly why, because I need 6 months to work with those community groups that have reached out to me and said they are willing to work with me. So I will stop there because I see that the alderman would like to engage.
We have a number of questions. If you're going to ask, I don't see Alderman Cicho Lopez's hand raised, but
Chairman, I mean, can I cut a little rebuttal?
Yes, that's not where I was going. You did not raise your hand, but I know it's your ward, so I'm going to call on you to rebut or comment on the extension of the tolling period for the landmark district. Alderman Cicho Lopez.
Thank you. And first of all, and let me thank you, Chairman, for allowing my constituents to have a voice today. And I think that it is very clear that the administration was much better prepared for today than me. Obviously, we did not have the opportunity to even discuss in a direct introduction that affects our constituents first. So I hear Commissioner Cox. I'm not putting in question, his the briefings that he's received, but I can tell you with authority that I was there in a lot of those meetings. And let me make sure that I get some of the factual information first. This landmark, first of all, was conceived not by the community, not in a quality of life plan, not in any community process. This was conceived in the absence of, or during the unfortunate situation that happened by my predecessor. So there were conversations that were rushed. So a lot of the meetings that you allude to in April, and Commissioner, if you're not aware of, coincide with the time that my predecessor was not even in office, and coincide with a period that seemed to be rushed. Commissioner Gorski, the previous administration, Alderman Solis, did not consult with the community. I think that you rightly state that on April 2019, there were 222 testimonies in the first public meeting that was hosted. Commissioner Cox, I was there. I can tell you with authority, and I think that's what is not included in your testimony, that 22 residents spoke against the proposal. And I think that's very important to allude, because as you heard today, once again, 9 out of the 9 testimonies, even though we were not prepared for this meeting, were against the landmark. And let me tell you why people elected a different choice than my predecessor. So let me make sure that we are factual here, because it was important that we have a process. So you have asked for time. I think before you, there was also another commissioner that asked for time. What I think is very clear here is that when the outcome doesn't satisfy the administration, we continue to jump hoops despite the opposition of the community. I think that when we saw the opposition the first time that there was this process that started wrong is when my community, in that meeting that you rightly so point out on April 2019, rightly so said, do not introduce this, because people understood that it was an all or nothing deal. That did not matter, and rightly so, on May, as you pointed out, on May 16th, 4 days before I took office, Commissioner Gorski introduced a direct introduction similar to the one that you want to extend, without consultation, without talking to the community, and put us in a horrible predicament, because now we have to decide on all or nothing kind of deals, which is an incorrect and inadequate way to do community processes. Now, despite of that, we agreed that we're going to take our time for doing 1 year. I think that you rightly so discussed that my community, and I think you point out the multiple meetings that my community have hosted, from focus groups, public meetings. I think I want to correct some inaccuracies, if you allow me. Some of the inaccuracies that you have in one of the meetings in July, there were over 400 attendees. And there was, and the focus groups, we have had at least 15 per session. I have taken my time and trusted the Department of Planning's judgment so that we can have a real process. We decided that within 1 year, we are going to respect the outcome of such a process. We have discussed, this is indeed one of the largest landmarks, not only here in the state, but probably in the country. And you are experimenting with a community that's already struggling with taxes, there's already struggling with rehab. I'll tell you let's discuss a little bit of the incentives, because it's important that my colleagues learn a little bit about the incentives and why some of the testimonies clearly stated that this is not supporting the small businesses or the long-term residents, but indeed, this supports the investors and speculators that are continuing to destroy my community. And that's what my predecessor allowed this to move forward. Now, I was fair. I said, let's discuss this. If it's a tool that will help my community, of course I'm going to consider. Commissioner Cox, if you have had the opportunity to talk to me, I've been not only in these meetings on the last year, but at least for 10 years discussing this very same issue. Never once the landmark became a tool in our community. Even the quality of life plan done by the Great Cities Institute does not include it. And I'll tell you why. The reason why this is not a good tool for our community is because when you talk about the $1 million for the 800 plus buildings that you want to landmark, I tell you, and I think that some research shows that between 50,000 to 65,000 will be the minimum. that a household will need in order to keep up with the already hard codes that our city has. Now, if you add a landmark, right, it will be even more costly. Now we have, $1 million per year, as you rightly alluded to. Let's do the math, right? For how many buildings do we have that opportunity to contribute, right? How many families can we help with that $1 million a year? If we do the math, perhaps between 15 to 20 households. And I have said that I am, open to have that kind of conversation. But if you really want to do a math correctly, we're talking about, and I think your department knows this very well, that we will need a significant amount, maybe $50 million, to do the kind of landmarking that you're proposing, Commissioner Cox. So again, we want to make sure, and that's what the testimonies have said. Look, one another thing that you want to add to that, a lot of these incentives and why developers love this idea is because increase the assessment value of our properties of already struggling homeowners. So the taxes, will go up. And on top of that, that you will need to have to qualify for these incentives, including the tax breaks and including, some of these $50,000 that you rightly point out, do at least 25% of the assessment of the property to qualify. Now, one of the things that I do think is important to really clarify here is that our communities, Commissioner Cox, right now do not have the liquidity and do not have the, especially now. I think you rightly heard from one homeowner that said right now it probably is the worst time to do this kind of landmarking, to put extra hurdles into a community that is already struggling. So when you talk about, and also we have Professor Bettencourt that also have done some national studies about the effects of landmarking on the most vulnerable. Now, I agree with you, Commissioner Cox, in the need of doing that we do indeed need to address some issues like demolitions. However, the unintended consequences that you mentioned are dire. I'll give you an example, and I think that's what is very important, that we are rooted and in the grassroots level. Perhaps some things that you may not be seeing as unintended consequences. Right now, we have seniors, low-income residents that come to our home and they're asked that they need to do repairs. A lot of my colleagues don't know this, but the minute that this went into effect, and that's why it wasn't consulted with me to begin with, but however, because I do believe in the spirit of democracy and the spirit of looking at every single tool, I said, let's have the process to discuss. What I didn't know is that this, and I think, correct me if I'm wrong, Commissioner, what I didn't know is that this already takes into effect. So already we have homeowners and people in my community that are given this direct introduction that is perceived to be this benign thing that maybe is not causing much troubles. What it does, it now forces a lot of my homeowners, like you heard in the testimonies, a small business that had to spend extra money in awnings. Commissioner Cox, I was there, and the testimony is real. Now, we have also homeowners that have right now to go in front of Planning Commission. Imagine what it is for a low-income family to have to hire an architect to justify the repairs so that they can be up to code. Now, again, we're talking about a very expensive experiment that we want to propose. Now, let's look at the process, Commissioner Cox, because I think that's what's also missing in your presentation. Let's look at the outcome of the year-long process, right? And the reason why you have not had the courtesy to let me know about your decision of asking for 6 months, because you know very well about the outcome of the surveys that we conducted with your team in my office, multiple focus groups, multiple community groups, and you just heard from directly testimonies that I was able to gather within 24 hours. I think I can get you many more. But I think that the one thing that is very important to mention is that in the district, with homeowners in the district, and I send you an email with that, Commissioner Cox, there are approximately 200, please, my colleagues, please listen to this figure. 235 affidavits were collected, sealed and signed by homeowners in my district that oppose in 95% the proposal
How
of the
many
land.
properties are there in the historic?
Commissioner, I did not have the opportunity to ask you questions, so I appreciate the same courtesy. So I think that the thing is that we need to look at the outcome of those public meetings. And the reason why my office did not have the same courtesy as you all had, that when there's a direct introduction, of course, there's common courtesy that we let the aldermen know, we let the community groups know. Not 3 community groups, not 3 phone calls. We got to talk about a robust community process, as you have rightly so said, Commissioner Cox. A robust community process, it is the kind of process that I conducted and do with due diligence with community groups, like you mentioned, with testimonies, as I provided, with affidavits as we agreed on. Now, if the outcome, Commissioner Cox, is not satisfactory, to the DPD, right? And it's not what your department is willing to consider, right? We do have a democratic process because that's what we are elected. We are elected to listen, not to educate, to listen to my constituents, my small businesses, my homeowners. I do need to listen to see what is best for them. Now, what I tell you that is more troubling, right? And this is what it gets really complicated, that what you're trying to do, Commissioner, it is not that we did not want to have a conversation. The minute that the outcome wasn't satisfactory, the conversations stopped. Not because we wanted to, but because it was very obvious that the department wanted to go in a much different direction. But I tell you that using the emergency powers ordinance that is already expired by the end of June to try to put a direct introduction that bypasses my office. By the way, my predecessor put that under the conversation with DPD, this is direct introduction. So it is my duty and I'm the only one right now that can put a direct ordinance in place. So right now, of course, that you can do this parliamentary maneuvering, you can do many things that unfortunately is very clear that I did not even allow me to talk to my colleagues before taking this vote and try to surprise me last minute. But I tell you, fortunately, I have been doing this work for a while and I know the facts. I've been there in those committee meetings. I know the feeling of my homeowners who are struggling. I know those who need to do repairs, and now they have developers who are going after them and saying, well, if you cannot do the repairs, we can buy your property. That's what this is about, Commissioner Cox. So let me talk about the reason why this is important, because we were very clear that within the 365 days, we were going to make a decision. Now, this is the third time that my community is let down. The third time. The first time when we said, do not introduce something without a consent, it was introduced. Let's do it, within the year that we decided to have a public meetings and the process that you rightly described, Commissioner Cox. I was there. I listened very carefully about, my constituents. I will deal with the consequences of it. The consequences are going to be dealt by my administration, not by you, Commissioner Cox. They will be dealt with my community. So I know it's easy to experiment, but for me, this is my home. This is the people that I represent. These are the neighbors that I talk to and I serve. So again, it is very troubling to see an emergency power ordinance that is expired and a direct introduction without consultation, not only with me, but with my stakeholders, right? Again, and then the third time, yet another third time, this has happened because the outcome wasn't satisfactory. My colleagues, I think that we set a very dangerous precedent if we allow this kind of decision making when commissioners, decide to do things on their own, perhaps with good intentions, but with unintended consequences that I hope explained to you in detail. I have explored as well as the representative that was elected. I was elected to do this job. My predecessor, yes, had that idea as well, Commissioner Cox, and I think that my community decided otherwise. They decided that there was a different route, and a route that I also have shared with you, Commissioner Cox. Like I said at least 2 months ago, the substitute that I'm proposing, and I'm going to propose again today. A substitute, and by the way,
okay,
is a substitute.
here's what we're doing. Here's what we're going to do. There are other aldermen. You're going to have the closing thought. We're going to move to Alderman Sawyer.
Thank you, Chairman, and good afternoon, everyone. I got on to ask some questions because my colleague Byron Cincho Lopez called me at the last minute and expressed some concerns. I was not, in all honesty, that much aware of what was going on, so I took a quick dive into it. And let me just get some clarity. And Commissioner Cox, I hope you can help me out. And you helped me a lot with your presentation. The issue that we have up today is just tolling the expiration of the 365 days. Is that correct?
That is correct.
That's the only thing that's up today.
That's it.
If we do nothing today, the landmark would be in effect had, unless Alderman Cincho Lopez files something to terminate it or does something to stop to stop the bleeding, so to speak.
If we do not toll and get the additional 6 months, the ordinance goes into effect on August 28th.
So something had to be done by somebody, whether it be you or someone else.
You better believe it. You better believe it.
Okay, so my concern is that, and this is, I've had these conversations in the past with all my colleagues. If there's something that a colleague feels strongly about in their ward as relates to a zoning issue, I'm going to support that colleague, come hell or high water. Whatever they decide they want to do for their ward, I think that I owe them that respect to get something done. But today, all we're talking about is, sorry, my dog keep hitting me. The only thing we're talking about today is extending this for 6 months so continued conversations can be had. Is it correct that Alderman Cincho Lopez can still do what he wants to do as it relates to fighting the landmark designation?
I don't know who that is addressed to.
Or whoever can answer it adequately.
Repeat the question.
Is it correct that Alderman Cincho Lopez during this 6-month stay could file whatever he needs to file if he does not, or his constituents don't want the landmark designation, they can do whatever's necessary to oppose the landmark designation?
I believe that to be true.
Commissioner, would you agree?
Well, I mean, we have Ray Philip Santos from law in the call, if he would like to address that question.
Okay, Ray, would you like to respond to Alderman Sawyer's request? Or question,
Chairman, can Alderman Sawyer repeat his question clearly again?
Certainly. My question is, if Alderman Cincho, during this, if we agree to toll the landmark designation, during this—
Up to 6 months.
Up to 6 months, yes, sir. During this period, will Alderman Cincho Lopez have an opportunity to oppose this proposed landmark designation?
Good afternoon, Ray Philip Santos on behalf of the City of Chicago. Yes, the answer to your question, Alderman Sawyer, is absolutely yes.
Okay, that's my overriding concern. I don't have the details as Commissioner Cox has or Alderman Cincho Lopez has, but I want to know that if my colleague is having a problem with whatever's going on in his ward, does not feel comfortable, I would like to provide support for him in whatever he's trying to do. And that's my concern. And that's really—
Alderman Sawyer, I think we're on the same page.
Yes.
And because by not acting on this tolling ordinance today, then as Commissioner Cox says, it goes into effect August 28th without any more community input. We don't want that to happen. We wouldn't want that for any of our colleagues.
Yes.
So there's a lot of statements between the department and the alderman. At the end of the day, that's a legislative process. We can act up to from, let's say, September through January, and we could vote down the ordinance even after all this work has been done by the department. So I think what we're doing, and I think Alderman Cincho Lopez might disagree with me, but I think we're doing a cooling off period here so that we can, as colleagues, be able to understand that the alderman's wishes and his community wishes are going to rule the legislative process.
Thank you. That's really—
Just for some of you, and not me, this is a brand new issue up maybe into the last few days. I have been working with Cincho Lopez for many months, a few months on this issue. Now, I think it's the right compromise that doesn't cede any power to the local alderman over this issue. And what I think, if we don't act prudently, I think his community is going to be shut out of any future discussion. And I don't think that's fair to us, any of us.
And that's my overriding concern. I want to make sure his neighbors, his constituents are heard and they have an opportunity to provide a voice in what goes forward. And I don't know the whole situation. I only found out about it last night. So I'm just wanting to be supportive of my colleague. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. All right.
Mr. Chairman, I
Alderman Ray Lopez.
have a point of information.
All right, point of information for Alderman Pat Dow.
Yeah,
Pat?
yeah, just to be clear, the May 16th, 2019 resolution was adopted by City Council or just submitted to City Council for adoption?
Yeah. The recommendation was adopted by the Landmark Commission. It then get referred to the city clerk for us to consider as the zoning committee of landmarks and preservation.
But we never considered it.
Acted on, it has not been acted on for that period for the year, but then we had the COVID situation where it extended it a couple of more months. And this is why we're at that deadline for August 28th.
Chairman Alderman Rodriguez for a point of order.
Alderman Rodriguez.
I thought I heard earlier in the meeting, Alderman Sichko Lopez moved for consideration of a substitute ordinance. Is that going to be taken up?
I know the committee members have received the substitute ordinance, and it's my assertion as the chairman that the substantive ordinance is substantially different than the tolling ordinance that we're asking. And point blank that this ordinance that is a substitute would literally have a 3 or 4 year demolition hold, which I don't think, and I know we have law on there, that's substantially different than what we're discussing today. So I think it's out of order to accept the direct substitute because it has nothing to do with the tolling ordinance that's in front of it. So if Alderman Sicho Lopez wants to introduce something on Wednesday, he can start this process as we
Chair,
wait a second. We talked to Chairman Sawyer about it, is that the local alderman has the right to introduce something there. We also have the opportunity to hear prior to 6 months that the community is not interested in landmarking as they see it. But again, this is a cooling off period, I believe, but it's also a period. And by the way, talk about due process, having this 3 to 5 year moratorium hold, we don't have, that's substantially different. We haven't noticed the city about it or the residents about it. So we can't do something that dramatically different. And I think it's substantially a different ordinance. It's not a substitute. What I can say, as I said before, if Sicho Lopez, the alderman, would like to introduce something on Wednesday, he has all the power and ability to do that. But I think what we want to do is to help Sicho Lopez and his community over the next up to 6 months. It could be,
Chair.
Okay, so.
Chair, can I
want to respond to that, Sicho Lopez, specifically to that about the substitute that you tried to put forth?
Yeah, Chairman, can I rebut about the substitute?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, so again, and I will challenge this notion again of the use of emergency power ordinance that is expired, right? I already have heard with some of my constituents that they're going to challenge that, and there's already homeowners who are going to challenge that because that is also a very big concern, huge concern. In fact, my substitute ordinance again that is using some of the language, right? And I think that we want to make sure that what we have, either way, they're going to make sure that they're under yours or undermined. There will be challenges. Of course, is ideal that we don't have to air this in public, but I'm within my right. I think that I can raise to move an amendment in the form of a substitute because that's under Rule 33, so that we can propose this under the consideration and let us decide that on legal terms, as we're going to have to decide on the emergency powers ordinance. I think that the expiration date is going to be a big problem. So I'd like to know that, or declare that every single one of my colleagues received a copy of the amendment with the specific sections that were struck and showing the relevant substitutions. So it is using the language and is a direct introduction that can strike the current landmark And, we want to make sure that we have a similar process. We're talking about the same thing. What we want to make sure is that why do I have to wait in a direct introduction that I'm within my right to introduce, right? And I think there's a matter of legal opinions, but I think within my right to make that motion. So I'd like to put the motion on the floor for my colleagues to consider, because they're both, I think that you're dismissing.
All right.
You're dismissing the fact that there was an emergency ordinance that was used.
So in the opinion of chair, the substitute that you introduced is out of order. Now, who else had their point of information up there?
Alderman Riley.
Alderman Riley.
Well, Chairman, you're absolutely correct. This is a substantively different amendment than what was brought before us today. This is about invalidating a landmark district. It has nothing to do with extending a tolling period. So I'd argue that, Chairman, you are absolutely correct in your interpretation, and I'll support your motion. But I guess I'm really confused because our colleague Alderman Cicho Lopez is claiming deficiencies in the process. Adding this tolling agreement gives him more time to build whatever process he needs. And so I guess I'm incredibly confused. If this fails today, there will be no tolling and the landmark district will go into effect. So anyway, Chairman, as a point of information, I believe you are correct in your opinion.
All right.
Yeah, hold on, Chairman, can we have legal opinion? Can we have legal opinion? I mean, we need a lawyer to look.
Okay, this is.
You don't need a lawyer.
Hold on a second. I'm not a lawyer, and I don't know your credentials either, but we do have law on the line. So is legal counsel Ray?
I'm here, Chairman.
Yes. So do you want to restate quickly what your concern is for legal counsel? Alderman Cicho Lopez, ask the question direct and let's get an answer.
Yeah, again, all I'm asking is, this is just a legal opinion because I haven't gotten a written opinion as of, I think that we're on the same page in terms of that the substitute will not help us to make sure that this does not, because of course we in agreement that nobody wants the landmark to be into effect. All I want is basically because I haven't gotten this in writing in a few months, so I would like to get legal on public record. Just if that doesn't do it, then again, maybe this is the time where we can clarify the question.
Alderman Cicho Lopez, just for the edification of the lawyer and the rest, what is the question?
So my question is, if we kill or we vote these down, then and my substitute doesn't do the magic trick, then the landmark goes into effect. Yes or no?
Okay, that's it. Can we
Thank you.
hear from law, please?
Good afternoon, Ray Philip Santos again for the City of Chicago. If the substitute that is proposed for this were to be accepted as a substitute, and I think that Chairman, you are correct that it would be fair to rule it out of order as it is substantially different from what was introduced. But even if the substitute were accepted, then I don't think that we'd be able to have a hearing on it and consideration of it, as it was not on the agenda. People have not been able to attend this and to weigh in on this. There'd be no public comment on it. So arguably it would violate the Open Meetings Act. But yes, the landmark designation would still go into effect on August 28th, 2020. So this, what has been proposed, the ordinance that is on the table at the moment, is the only way that I know of that we could toll the time so that it doesn't go into effect at this point.
Point of information.
Well, all right, Raymond, were you finished? Ray?
Yes, I am finished.
Oh, okay. point of information, Alderman Sawyer.
Yes,
You're directed
and
to legal counsel, right?
Yes, directly to legal counsel, that's correct.
Okay.
Question, it's my understanding that the Landmark introduced their provision May 16th, 2019, is that, or 2019, is that correct?
Correct.
All right, so, and then this is something I'm just trying to clarify. If it was introduced 4 days before we were sworn in, a new council was sworn in, how does it get validated in a new council? Was it reintroduced? Or what's the status of it since it was introduced 4 days before the new council was sworn in?
My
Or does it have any effect at all?
My understanding, according to my staff, it was a direct introduction July of 19.
Yes, and Citro Lopez. Yes.
So it was introduced in July of 19.
Right, and then according to my staff, that Citro Lopez asked it not to be heard.
And that is correct. And in fairness to him, as a new alderman, we were in deference to him because he wanted time to mount his own process for socializing this. It makes sense that he would have asked that the new council not act on this and our department deferred to his timeline.
So I guess I'm trying to understand, Chairman, did the provision start May 16th or did it start in July of 19?
I believe, I'm just doing the math, and based on COVID, I'm deferring to the department on the end date of August 28th. They can work their way back on that.
Okay, I'm just getting curious now that when I was, and again, this is new to me. I mean, you all have been dealing with this far longer than I have, but if it was introduced May 16th, I know we generally have a general kill provision for anything that has not gone through when a new council is sworn in, which is on May, would happen to have been May 20th,
right.
4 days before. But you said it was introduced in July, later on in that summer.
Correct.
Okay, so
and I'm not the lawyer in the room, but I'm just because the Landmark Commission is not a city council committee that might not be killed.
Yeah, and that's what, again, I was confused. Yeah. Thank you. I was just trying to get some clarity.
Chairman.
Okay.
Chairman, just to, I think to get to Chairman Sawyer's point, I think somebody from DPD should speak about when the time period starts polling for this 365 days.
All right, thanks, Lucia. Commissioner Cox, do you want to add?
Yes, I would like Michael, who is also on the phone, to respond to that about the specific dates.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, and state your name.
Yes, this is Michael Gaynor from the city's law department. In response to Alderman Sawyer's question, the Landmark Ordinance provides that the 365-day timeline begins with the submission, date upon which the recommendation is filed with the City Council, meaning filed by the Landmarks Commission, and that's what happened in May of 2019. So that's why the 365 days started with that May date. As we've talked about, there was a 60+ day tolling of that under the emergency ordinance earlier this year. But that's why the 365 days started in May of 2019.
All right. I'm going to move to Alderman Ray Lopez.
I was going to ask a point of information, Chairman, if I could start talking or not, but I figured I'd wait. But thank you, Chairman and Commissioner. It's great seeing you.
Good to be here.
I feel remiss. I haven't seen you in quite a few months. So I want to ask a couple questions, and my curiosity is, in your statement, you said that you haven't had any meetings on this matter since March, since just before the COVID situation really took place. Is that correct?
Well, I've had 3 meetings that I highlighted in June really, quite frankly, at the encouragement of the aldermen so that I could hear from community leaders. So those were hour-long conversations. I gathered an enormous amount of insight. And my goal was to get to every group that was available before I began a larger process of engagement.
So, so excuse me, the reason I'm asking is because I'm trying to understand, I'm assuming that the entire duration of the COVID pandemic, you and your staff have in fact been working the entire time. Is that correct?
It is correct. And I have been doing research to try to address the various issues that have been brought up to me. Yes.
Fine. Thank you, Commissioner. So you have been working for the last 5.5, 6 months since March 17th took effect, correct?
Yes, I've been working on maybe 50 wards and twice as many projects, but I will say that I have given significant attention to Pilsen because I care very dearly about what we're talking about here.
Yeah, okay. So the reason, again, I'm asking this is because it seems very unusual that we would come right down to the finish line, that we would only start kicking up community engagement discussions, as you stated, in June, 3 of them for hours on end, knowing that the July meeting is the last meeting of the city council, knowing that we're not going to be here for anything in August, and knowing that there will be no opportunity for, please don't shake your head, Commissioner, I'm trying to be respectful here. Knowing that Alderman Cicho Lopez, regardless what happened earlier, would have no opportunity to try and present anything that his community and his residents are asking for. So I find it highly suspect, to be quite honest, to think that our Department of Planning and Development could not multitask this entire time on a project that has actually been in the works and known about. With all due respect to all of my colleagues that were aldermen before 2019, this actually goes back since November 13th, 2018, where this council, this committee, and I remind you, Chairman, I believe we were here that day together, when then Alderman and Chairman Danny Solis, Alderman George Cardenas, and then Alderman Ricardo Munoz introduced the anti-gentrification and affordable housing plan for both Pilsen and Little Village. I remember this day very specifically because the chairman at the time got into an argument because I actually called quorum on 2 different committees trying to stop this concept back then, which was that somehow now we were going to focus on gentrifying the gentrification of Pilsen and even discussing the landmark status in 2018. All of this has been in DPD's wheelhouse for not just the last 5 months, it has been in this department's wheelhouse for the last 2 years. And while you may be new, Commissioner, I don't think there was a complete sweep of the department that could not inform you as to what was already in the works. So to find out that we are here at the brink trying to force a situation is very, very upsetting to me. It's upsetting because you have not been all consumed with all projects in DPD. I'm serious when I say I have not seen you in months. That aside, to say that this is what we've been this is what we have been focused on, but not being able to actually produce anything and now needing even more time to get this done, this should not be how Chicago works. We are a city who knows how to walk and chew gum simultaneously. And for us to show today that we can't do this really makes me wonder, quite frankly, about the legitimacy of many of the other projects we have, that all the plates that we're trying to spin simultaneously, especially when it comes to TIP, especially when it comes to Invest Southwest. Those are major projects also. So how are you, and I'll let you answer in a second, how are you able to tell me with any confidence that you're on top of this?
Sure.
Without having to worry if we're gonna come up to the brink every time.
Commissioner,
well, thank you. Just briefly, I have to put this a little bit in context. I have been here for 9 months. 4 of which have been through the COVID-19 pandemic. Even despite that low, where I was told very specifically that the community at this moment, Commissioner Cox, has some other issues on their mind, and they are life and death issues. So do what you have to do to prepare the ground, but this is not the time to talk to constituents about a historic district. The alderman asked, so are there other ways that we could do this? And we provided him with the material for alternatives at his request. He brought up the issues of gentrification, displacement, affordability, legacy businesses. And for everything he brought up, we did research on how to address that issue, to the point today where we have a half a dozen new tools that have not been used in any historic district in Chicago. That's the work we were doing, marshaling millions of dollars to go into his ward that we have done for no other ward in the city. That's what I've been doing. And I have been doing it with the full support of the alderman. We put his ward logo and his name on all of the tools because I don't need any credit for it. And we gave those materials to him and we said, please socialize them with your constituents. And from what I understand, he did hold one meeting. So I just don't agree with your characterization that I have been sitting on my hands and watching this play out.
Okay, so with that, we can agree to disagree. We've got 6 other aldermen that have first questions. So I'm going to get back to you, Raymond.
But I have to say something, Chairman, and because this speaks to what this committee has done over the years. And while I might not be only 9 months on the job, this committee already approved something that dealt with 20% affordable housing in Pilsen, that dealt with giving incentives to develop affordable apartments, that actually talked about purchasing more additional land for the Paseo, while also talking about 18th Street and Blue Island being landmarked, as well as modernizing industrial corridors. So it is really incredulous for anyone, especially the head of this department, to say that this is the first time anything's been done because of him, because to be quite honest, we've already done it. And to sit here and try to take credit and go backwards and make it about logos for the alderman, I call BS on that because we have already been down this road. The fact that we are here again because you have not paid sufficient attention is the real issue for me. Disregarding and trying to box in an alderman because you have dragged us on to where we are today, that falls entirely on you, Commissioner. Thank you.
Okay. Alderman Haddon.
Thank you, Chair. I've really appreciated the conversation on this, and I'm trying to wrap my head around some process things. And so this is maybe a question, Commissioner, not so much for you, but Ray from legal, sorry to keep bugging you. I have a couple questions for you guys. So one, it's concerning to me, and I feel like I still get to use the I'm new card here. How did an action come, a recommendation come from the Plan Commission that it sounds like there was no council action on this?
No,
yet
it was a landmark commission. It's not.
Oh, sorry. I'm sorry. From the Landmark Commission. And then, but there's been no council action on it. However, it's going to take effect. Is that, it's concerning to me that that can happen, but can someone just confirm for me that that can happen?
Yes. Good afternoon, Ray Phillips again. Yes, Alderman Haddon, and you never need to apologize for any questions to me. From a law geek standpoint, I did a little bit of research on this, and in 1997, the city council passed amendments to this ordinance, which said that if the city council did nothing, then in a 365-day period, then yes, it becomes law. And that was when you look at the amendment, it's a really conscious effort by the city council to do that.
Thank you for that response. And can I ask maybe through the chair, if you can get me that research, because I think we've got another thing to fix. So thank you for that. And then specifically, right, taking into context the whole of the conversation, the conundrum we find ourselves in with what seems to be really well-intentioned actions, a lot of work and time, but a community and their representative very clearly not wanting this to continue. How do we stop this action? So right now we're talking about this piece of legislation that would give us more time to consider it, but how do we stop it? What action? Because I hear it's going to take effect if council takes no action. So what is the action that we could take today to prevent the landmark designation from going into effect? And that's for planning or for legal.
I will certainly let legal speak, but from my understanding is that City Council adopted the 365-day rule because City Council was the place where historic districts went to die, where they were held in perpetuity. So because they may not have been popular, the alderman was waiting for more community support, and that there were over 10 proposals that were stuck in City Council. So City Council adopted a rule that either you have the courage to act or it will happen automatically after 1 year. And that's my understanding of how that rule came about.
Appreciate that understanding. I think, Mr. Phillips, you said that was in 1997 or 96?
Yes, that was in
I was in high school, so I think, it's time to review that. But that still gets to the basic question. What action can we take today to stop the landmark process?
So
and if not today, this month.
Right. So the way for that to happen can't happen today simply because it's not on the agenda. A hearing on this matter, on a discussion of the recommendation is not on the agenda. Once it is on the agenda and this committee hears it, it can recommend to pass or not pass, do not pass or do pass. Vote that comes out of this committee will then go to the city council, which will then vote. And that would be the way to either approve, affirmatively approve or disapprove this ordinance.
So potentially, we could have at the next meeting of this committee, we could introduce an ordinance, or we could bring this landmark designation to, and we could take a vote to do not pass.
Yes.
I'd say I would put that forth as one of the options, and I'm wondering if the chairman would consider that.
May I say something? Because we've seen this all before. We've seen this happen before, time and time again in Chicago, as a result of our unwillingness to preserve neighborhoods. We have seen an acceleration of demolition. We saw it in River North. We saw it on Milwaukee Avenue. We saw it on Burling Street. All of the places that we go and look at the gentrification of those areas, they are a result of not having the necessary tools in place to preserve those communities that were there first. And so as a planning director for the entire city, I consider it a dereliction of my duty to not protect, not use the tools that are afforded to us to protect a neighborhood like Pilsen. And I am fine with working with the Alderman Cicho Lopez to give local control to these decisions. But I simply cannot watch another community be lost when all of the handwriting is on the wall. We've seen it through the requests for demolitions. And I just don't want to wake up 10 years from now under my watch and see a neighborhood like Pilsen demolished before our very eyes because of our inaction.
Commissioner, I think that I appreciate those comments, and I think I can speak for myself and say I'm wholeheartedly with you, right, in us using the tools available. And in hearing from the residents, I really appreciated your slides going through the process on this so far, and also though in talking to my colleague and recognizing that the folks who put this forward, they're not here anymore. They're not here anymore, the elected officials, right? Some of the statements you mentioned that were in support from those early commission meetings, fewer than 10, knowing from my community work and from what I know from my residents, it's not the everyday people that go to commission hearings and speak to these things a lot of times. And the city is not known for having well advertised and open processes. And one of the things I'm excited on having you as part of our city is actually in changing those. So I'm wondering, in finding ourselves where we're at now, would it not be prudent to find a way to end a process that was begun before Alderman Sigcho Lopez was here, before you were here, that seems to have flaws and have some issues that I'm hearing a lot of 25th Ward constituent concerns about, and to maybe look at other tools and begin anew, building on what you've learned so far, because that issue here is it's an imperfect designation with a lot of negative consequences for the working class community that's currently there, and would only partially accomplish what we're looking for when we do have other tools. We've done demolition freezes, we're getting innovative. So, I would again say, can we move this to the next meeting? Can we actually address it? And I think a lot of folks would want to move do not pass and move forward with a different process, with you guys engaging residents in the Pilsen community on really meeting the needs and looking at how we preserve not just the buildings, but the community.
Well, Alderman, I don't want to lose this tool, which is a tool which I know to be effective in my own experience of historic districts. It's not the tool, it's how you use the tool. It's what the expectations are for the tool. We can use this tool to preserve Pilsen for the residents who are there. We have to bring additional tools to the table. But if we let this opportunity pass, we don't get to go back and do it again. Once you vote down this district, Pilsen will no longer be able to come back to this to create a district. It's done. And that too gave me a reason to pause. We don't get a second bite at the apple. What I'm asking for are 6.
A little bit more to that, actually, Director or Commissioner Cox. Why? Yeah, explain this to me.
Well, as it's been explained to me, I'm going to have to, I don't know if Ray is able to explain, or whether we have Eleanor Gorski or Deanna, but my understanding is that if we vote, if the council votes down this historic district, we are not able to bring it back a year from now after it's been socialized and there's greater support. We lose this tool indefinitely.
All right.
Michael Gaynor, I don't know, can you answer that question?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, I'm sorry, everyone. Yes, Alderman, in answer to your question, as the commissioner was saying, in the landmarks ordinance, there's a provision that we refer to as the second bite, which says that unless there are significant changes, significant new evidence that comes to light, that a failed landmark designation cannot be resuscitated. So, the sort of unless we were, I can't really imagine a scenario where, they often talk about, if you're talking about a single structure and there's a landmark proposal and it fails, but then you later find out that, you know, Abraham Lincoln slept there. Well, then that landmark has some new significance has come to light, and therefore you could try again to redesignate it as a landmark. But in this instance, if we decided that a multi-property district, if the council decided that a multi-property district was not deserving of landmark status, I'd have a hard time thinking of you know, facts that would say that that it could be revisited any, you know.
I appreciate that, and it seems like that example you said makes a lot of sense on if it was a specific building, and also we're talking about a very large area. I imagine could redesignate which area of Pilsen and come up with a whole set of reasons based on the community process that we're learning that could probably also qualify for a consideration, as it would be a different proposal in a different set of buildings. But I'll stop there. But Chairman Tunney, that was one of my questions for you, is still unanswered, which is, can we take this to the next meeting? Would you consider that for us to actually be able to vote on the landmark designation? I don't know what the schedule looks like for next month.
Well, first of all, we need to pass the ordinance today that gives an additional 6 months, up to 6 months. We can reject that proposal sooner than later. So we're not saying that we were going to wait a 6-month period. The ordinance says up to 6 months. It can be done before that up or down vote.
And is that because we're not meeting in August, and that way so then we would be past the deadline?
Correct. All right, I'm going to ask Alderman Moore. David Moore.
Thank you, Chairman. Just real quick for me, from an overall city standpoint, budget, there's nothing that financially impacts the city right here, right?
This is a zoning ordinance.
I know.
The incentives have not been approved. It's not a budgetary issue at this point.
Right. So the overall issue is the protection of the community, correct?
That is correct.
Landmark is there. That's what landmark ordinances do.
Right. I just want to be.
Now, there's different feelings about that when it comes to some of Alderman Lopez and his neighborhood's comments.
Right. And so what it boils down to is that both the mayor looking out what she believes from the overall city standpoint, and the alderman looking out for overall community standpoint. And that seems like that's where we are here. Am I correct?
Correct.
That's all I needed to know. Thank you so much.
Alderman Rosanna Rodriguez. Alderman Rosanna Rodriguez.
I'm here. I'm trying to, no.
We can hear you.
Okay. It says, okay.
You're on.
Thank you, Chairman. I came to support my colleague, Byron Cicho Lopez. I think the thing that worried me the most about this discussion is the fact that Byron didn't know that there was going to be this direct introduction until last minute. And to me, as an alderman, that is also scary, that I would have to scramble to come to a hearing to deal with something that is so important for our constituents, right? So in this particular instance, I would really invite all my colleagues to listen to what Byron is saying, to listen to what Alderman Cicho Lopez is saying, and to go with whatever he feels like it's better for his constituents.
Thank you. Alderman Harry Osterman.
Thank you. Chairman Tunney, you're doing a great job today. Let me just say that.
I'm losing hair over this.
I know. I have.
But you're a chairman yourself, so you understand.
I know. You got me beat by like 3 hours. And Commissioner Cox, let me say, I appreciate that you're here from Detroit. I appreciate your insight and all the work you're doing across the city. And basically, I look at this as two conversations. One is, what do we do today to not have the landmark designation go into effect on August 28th? Because for my colleagues on the line, once that happens, there's triggers that affect property owners and everything else. And I think that there's consensus to not have that take effect de facto, that it should be intentional. So I think that's one part of this. I think the second part, and this goes to, I think, Alderman Sawyer and Alderman Haddon, there are provisions to not have, or to deny landmark in what I'll say a thoughtful way, which is that Alderman Sidco Lopez can introduce an ordinance saying he wants to vote this down, and then the zoning committee votes the landmark designation up or down. He similarly has the ability to introduce his ordinance about demolitions and have that be looked at by the zoning committee and have it be voted on up or down. I think that affording that opportunity through the process of this committee should take place if that's the desire he wants to. And I think that Commissioner Cox, you and your department have the ability to talk to him about what he wants and how he wants to use those tools for his community. As passionately, Commissioner Cox, as I heard you about the future of Pilsen, I know that we could stay here till midnight tonight to hear from Alderman Sidco Lopez, because he feels more so about it as well. And to me, at the end of the day, he is the elected alderman from that community. And I think you have the ability to show him these are the tools, and this is the history, and this is what we've seen. But if at the end of the day, him and his community choose not to have a designation, I think we're going to respect that. I think that we don't want to see developers come in and knock down old buildings that have been there for many, many years. But I think those are choices that collectively have to be made. And I think that you working with him and showing him these are all the tools, and quite frankly, historic designation is important, but that should not be the only tool in the toolbox.
Agreed.
So I think that, for my colleagues, this is just how I'm hearing this and listening to this, is it's two choices. The choice today is trying to pass this ordinance to buy time. That does not mean we have to punt until February or April of next year. The alderman from the 25th Ward can introduce a motion at the September meeting, or an ordinance at the September meeting, saying he does not want the historic designation, and that'll come to this committee for an up or down vote. And we'll have that conversation then. He similarly can look at demolitions, and if he has an ordinance on demolitions, he can introduce that, and we can have that as an up or down vote. But if we don't do something today, August 28th, landmark goes into effect. And I think that, so I think it's two conversations. And I think, let's just be clear about that. But Commissioner, I think you should work closely with the alderman. And again, at the end of the day, we're going to listen to kind of what the community wants. But I think that's kind of where I'm seeing this conversation today. So I just wanted to say that. Thank you.
Thank you, Alderman. And for the record, we did receive a public statement from Raul Raimundo, co-chair of Pilsen Planning Committee, endorsing this tolling period extension, just FYI, for more work to be done in the Pilsen neighborhood. Let's see, we have Alderman Cardona.
Thank you, Chairman. I appreciate this conversation as well, like my colleague Haddon. But I have a question, Commissioner. This ordinance pauses the demolition and gentrification in the Pilsen area. Am I clear? Is that right?
Can you say that again?
This ordinance, this toll, it will put a pause on the demolition or gentrification that's happening in Pilsen.
It does extend to the end date, but it's not a gentrification ordinance. So I'm not sure if that's.
Well, what I mean by that is because me I'm from the north side, and when I go down to the south side, Pilsen on 18th Street, I see like a Logan Square in Pilsen when I go down 18th Street, which like makes me think like they're gonna go through gentrification. So that's why I'm asking you, because yeah. So when I hear the residents of Pilsen neighborhood,
and I have worked with your colleague Alderman Cicho Lopez as he raises legitimate issues. I have sought nationally what community has done that piece, because there is no community that has done the entire thing. He raised concerns about legacy businesses, so to protect the Latino businesses inside the buildings. And we began to research what communities have made progress in protecting the businesses, the people, not just the buildings. And I'm bringing that to the table. He brought up the question of local control. I look nationally at models that are in place where local communities can have control over the demolition. And I'm crafting that ordinance to put in front of residents, if given the time. He raised the question about a homeowner grant. So I've been working with the department. So I don't know what else to do. I really don't. We have put tens and tens and tens of hours into this. And if I thought that this was going to be a tool for gentrification, I would not support it. It's a tool to preserve the community that is there. And I need the partnership. I need the full partnership of the aldermen and those community leaders to do something that Chicago has never done before. And that's what has kept me engaged in this conversation. But I need 6 months to do this process right. And that was all I was asking for with my direct introduction.
okay.
All right, thank you. Alderman Riley. Alderman Riley.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. First of all, I wanted to compliment Alderman Osterman for putting it so succinctly. And I respect where both parties in this are coming from too, but at the end of the day, Alderman Cicho Lopez is the elected representative of the 25th Ward. And I say this as someone with quite a long track record of landmarking. And so I think, as Harry said, in order for the alderman to have options and to decide whether to engage in a further dialogue with the department or not, we do need to pass this tolling, or the one outcome that Alderman Cicho Lopez wants to avoid, this landmark district going into effect, that will occur. And so, again, I'll ultimately defer to how our colleague Cicho Lopez wants to proceed. I think it would personally be a mistake for him to turn down this tolling opportunity, because that would force the question. That said, I think we should have a roll call on this, and therefore I move do pass.
1 second before, point of clarification before.
Hold on a second. Hold on a second. There's a motion on the floor for a roll call vote. So before we take the roll call, I'm going to call on Alderman Cicho Lopez to make his concluding remarks, and then we will have a roll call.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Chairman, and I appreciate that. I appreciate all my colleagues' feedback on this one. I think it's an important opportunity for us to have a really important conversation, because unfortunately, I think there's a lot of misconceptions in terms of the role of departments and the role of the alderman. I hear my colleague, Alderman Osterman, I appreciate your very, simple assessment. And the reality is, Commissioner Cox, that the zoning matter, this is a legislative matter, and this is a 25th Ward matter. So I have to be very, very concrete and real with you. Your duty in this is provide the tools to local aldermen so that we can do what's best for our community. It is not your duty, however, to linger proposals despite the observations of the community of myself. So again, I just want to make sure that it's very clear, because at the end of the day, the executive branch, the legislative branch, we have to respect each other. I also want to make sure that we have a public commitment. I think what worried me is that after 1 year, I did not get the opportunity to vote this in committee, up or down. I do have, like many of my colleagues, I think the right, and I appreciate the Alderman feedback and your feedback, Commissioner. I think I've gone above and beyond. I don't know how many aldermen actually take this kind of feedback. Actually gone, I think, beyond and below, you know, in terms of not only my community, but now you have I think, plenty of feedback from zoning committee members. So I would like to make sure that I cannot in good consciousness have these linger and have my low income residents, working class residents go in front of Landmark Commission. You know, Landmark Commission, you know, for residents that are struggling, is red tape. Unfortunately, it's going to harm us. And I'm sorry, Commissioner, I can agree with that. I agree with some of your tools. I am sorry, but I have to disagree. And I'm glad that we are here on public record. So I would like to say that we can move into maybe give the extension just as long as that we can commit to put this item in front of the next zoning committee so that we can vote it down, because that's going to be what the community and myself is going to go behind. So that's the motion, Chairman.
There's already a motion on the
motion, Alderman
Cicho Lopez. So I'm going to ask for the roll call vote. Alderman Riley renews his motion, and I'll start with the roll call. Now, if you vote yes, you're voting to extend the tolling period for up to another 6 months. It could be before then, but the due date would be January 31 of next year.
Mr. Chairman?
Alderman Dow, you have a point of information, Alderman Dow?
Yes, don't get upset with me.
I'm not upset. I'm not upset.
Okay. I just want to be clear that the only thing we're voting on in this ordinance is the extension of the deadline. There's no other, nothing more can happen with this ordinance.
You are 100% correct, Alderman Dow. That it is only one thing, extend the deadline up to January 31st of next year.
Point of information, Mr. Chairman.
Alderman Burnett on a point of information.
Yeah, so was it clear that Alderman Lopez was okay with extending it?
I'm sorry, you're breaking up, Alderman.
Was it expressed by Alderman Cicho Lopez that he's okay with extending this for another 6 months?
I think my listening to Alderman Cicho Lopez is that he would agree to that as long as he could put it on in an expedient manner to be heard by the Landmarks Commission sooner than later. All right.
Point of information, Alderman, I said clearly at the next zoning meeting.
Yeah, but I understand your intention, and I'm going to work earnestly like I have with you to make sure that it's done in a very expedient manner. I'm not going to say it's the September meeting, but we're going to work with the department and you, and I guarantee you we will get it on in short notice. All right.
Well, I have to object to that.
Okay.
Chairman, please restate your.
Yeah, Alderman Riley, you have a motion on the floor. We asked for a roll call vote on extending the tolling period for the landmark recommendation ordinance to January of 2021, the 31st. Now, we're gonna call the roll. I'm gonna start with let's see.
Cicho Lopez.
Well, let me get started. Alderman Hopkins.
No.
Okay. Alderman Dowell.
No.
Alderman Sawyer.
Aye.
Alderman Ray Lopez.
Original Lopez voting no.
Alderman David Moore.
No.
Alderman Mike Rodriguez. Alderman Cicho Lopez.
Point of information, Alderman, I think that this is a very, it was a very simple vote, and now it becomes very complicated. So point of information, if you strike this down, then the landmark will become law.
Yes, sir.
Correct.
Right. So, It is a very
So-
simple thing to ask to put in the next zoning committee. I don't know
Okay.
why.
I will work with you as I have, I've worked with you on this. Are you voting yes or no on this?
Yes.
Oh.
I mean, come
Oh, Chairman.
No, okay, well, we can vote to reconsider, but let's keep moving.
Let's vote to reconsider.
Vote to
Alderman,
reconsider.
well, we're not finished with the roll call.
Roll call.
Rodriguez is a yes. Sorry, I was away.
Rodriguez is a yes. Alderman Burnett,
Yes.
Alderman Raboyes,
Yes.
Alderman Cardona,
Yes.
Alderman Wagisback,
Hey.
Alderman Wagisback,
No.
Alderman Villegas,
Yes.
Alderman Riley,
Yes.
Alderman Kappelman. Alderman Kappelman, Alderman Osterman,
Yes.
Alderman Haddon,
Yes.
Alderman Chairman Tunney votes aye.
Mr.
Chairman. Wait. Let me get, are you,
I have a point of order before the final vote is announced, sir.
yes, sir.
Well,
First of all, Alderman Dowell first, and then
Yes, Chairman Tunney, now that I've heard the will of Alderman Cicho Lopez, I want to change my vote to yes.
I think I think what I'm going to do is when we do to reconsider, we'll get the motion to reconsider, and then we'll do the roll call again.
Okay.
Is that, Alderman Hopkins, is that your question? Or point of information?
Yeah, the reconsideration may not be necessary. If the final tally for the vote hasn't been called, we're still in the roll call. It has not closed. If the chair, in his discretion with leave, will allow us to change our vote, I wish to change my vote to yes. So this may obviate the need to reconsider possibly.
Okay, let me go back. We've talked with law. I'm doing a new roll call on this initiative. So we're going to start over.
Point of order, Chairman. It's Alderman Lopez, I'm sorry.
Alderman Ray Lopez.
Yes, how is it that we're able to restart a roll call when we've already done it? I think.
Okay, we can ask legal, but I think even if we did, I think we had to pass it.
I understand that, Chairman, but I think that the precedent that I've seen over the last 2 days where votes are stopped midway because aldermen are uncertain, to say it politely, of what's being done is a bad precedent.
Okay.
Let's finish this vote. If we have to reconsider it because now the vote
I
has
wasn't
changed.
uncertain, I changed my vote.
Okay, let me do this. We did the call, and I was the last person to vote. The tally on the tolling ordinance is 11 yays, and how many nays?
I have 5.
And we have 5 nays. Is there a motion to reconsider that vote?
Yes, I move that we the motion to reconsider.
I, David Moore, second.
Okay, all those in favor?
Point of
order.
Okay, so now we're gonna start the roll, call again.
Chairman, before
Point of information, Alderman, before you take the vote, please.
So first off, point of order, Chairman. 2 of the individuals who asked for the reconsideration were on the losing side. We need someone who voted for the ordinance to make that.
I, Alderman Rodriguez, move to reconsider.
Thank you.
Osterman seconds.
Okay, all right, thank you for that clarification.
Sorry, Chairman, just want to make it legal.
All right. Alderman Hopkins.
Are we in
Alderman
a?
Hopkins.
Is this the roll call on the?
Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
I
vote means we extended this up to a 6-month period. Alderman Hopkins.
Don't we have to vote on the motion to reconsider before we vote?
Yeah, we did.
We did. Okay. I vote yes on the item.
Hold on. Okay. Alderman Dow,
Yes.
Alderman Sawyer,
Aye.
Alderman Beal, Alderman Raymond Lopez,
Yes.
Alderman David Moore,
Yes.
Alderman Mike Rodriguez,
Aye.
Alderman Cicho Lopez,
Aye.
Alderman Burnett,
Yes.
Alderman Raboyes, I think that was an aye.
Sounded like a no.
A distressful one, I might say, but Alderman Cardona,
Aye.
Alderman Wagasback,
Aye.
Alderman Austin, Alderman Villegas,
Aye.
Alderman Riley,
Aye.
Alderman Kappelman, Alderman Osterman,
Aye.
Alderman Haddon,
Aye.
Chairman Tunney votes aye. So we have 16 ayes and no nays. So this item is passed. Can I get a motion to reconsider, I guess, on that too?
Alderman.
No.
Who is that?
This is Jeff Levine.
Oh, Jeff Levine.
We already we did the motion to reconsider, and you can only do that once. So
Thank you. It's been a long day. Thank you, Jeff.
Yep.
All right, so this item is passed. I don't think there's any more.
Move to adjourn, Chairman. Alderman Lopez.
Okay.
Before we
With
move,
no further business, Alderman Ray Lopez makes a motion to adjourn. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Chairman, you did a fantastic job.
Any objections?
no objection.
The meeting is adjourned. Thank you for your patience and Alderman Cicho Lopez, my commitment is to continue to work with you and the department to do what's best for you, your neighborhood, and your ward. Thank you.
And hopefully,
Chaos well.
hopefully there can be an understanding before the next meeting so we don't go through this again.
You got it. Have a great evening, everybody.